Good afternoon, everybody. This is the meeting of the Appointments Committee for the ad hoc committee appointments, April 30th, 2024. This meeting is being recorded and will be rebroadcast on the Town of Barnstable Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20. The chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, please make the presence known. Okay, awesome.
Counselors, Burdick,
Present.
Turkelson,
Present.
Bloom,
Present.
Mendez,
Here.
Clark.
Here.
You have full quorum.
Okay. Do you want to jump right into it? Because we don't have to do minutes, right?
No.
No, okay.
Is there anyone for public comment?
There's public comment?
No.
No, okay. Lisa Nagel?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Lisa Nagel.
No.
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 Bill DeHay?
Yeah.
No. Hi, how are you? Good. I'm Jack. Nice to meet you.
Present. Thank you for listening. Nice to meet you.
So, nice to meet you.
Have a seat. Yeah. You're in the firing line. Hi, Hilda, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, thank you for coming in. I usually start with a very basic question about compromise. As you probably know, there's a lot of different things going on in town right now. And so it's important to be able to come to consensus and compromise. So could you tell us a time in your professional life where you have to come to consensus and compromise?
Go ahead, repeat your question again, please.
A time in your professional life when you had to compromise, come to a consensus and agreement. Maybe something you didn't agree with at the beginning, but then somebody kind of, you met halfway.
So good afternoon, my name is Luba Hay. I am a resident of Barnstable, live over in Centerville for the past 13 years. I've had a situation at work where we have disagreement, but in order for work to continue and for us to take care of our patients, we always have to come to a compromise for the interest of the patients and family, and also for the care.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a psychologist, work at Cape Cod Hospital.
Oh, nice, okay. Do you find housing insecurity a major issue at the hospital?
It is major. That is why right now we don't have enough workers because of that situation that we live right now.
Have you found out that it's mostly is it rent or availability or both?
Both. Both.
Councilor Clark? Oh,
Thank you very much for your interest in applying for this committee. And I appreciate your support here in having, each of you have, you've been the chair of the Barnstable Housing Committee. Appreciate your investment in that group. How do you think that committee can do better?
Well, at this time, there's a lot of loose ends, I would say. In housing, I think it is finding the land, availability of the land and investors, and affordability. All of that has to be taken into consideration. And for us to keep young people on the Cape, for young families, 2,500 is not affordable for them. 2,200 for a 2-bedroom house, working 16 hours a week or even $20 an hour, and not pay that kind of bill. So we have, as a community, we have to come up with ways and means to work with the state, with the federal government, whatever it takes for us to get housing back on track. Because right now we're in a very deep crisis, I would say, with housing. Young people at work, we have a lot of travelers now, and it's coming up to the busy season. They have nowhere to stay because their rent that they're paying at present, by the beginning of May, which is a few days from now, that money is increased by 1,000. I have at least 2 people in my department right now that are travelers. And they won't be able to stay, they have to go back because they can't afford a place to live here. And so it's gonna affect us in the wider community in the sense that there are gonna be longer waits in the ER if we don't have staff. There are gonna be longer waits in our restaurants going out to eat. It's already affecting us. So at this point in time, I think we really have to put our differences aside and put the best interest of our community there and work towards housing.
I usually ask, have you attended the housing committee meeting? So the thing that you're chairing, I can understand that you've made that commitment already. What do you envision that this new ad hoc committee can do that the housing committee that you now currently serve on is not accomplishing as well?
Well, I think Barnstable, for some reason, is so lagging behind. I find that comparing to Yarmouth or the rest of communities, houses, I'm not sure. It's like a tug of war in Barnstable in making a good decision for us to move forward. I think we need more togetherness and we have to compromise a lot. And I know water is also a problem, sewer is a problem. So, I mean, the sewer is on its way now, and I think that's opening up, I think, more avenues where we can probably be able to build more houses in places that we weren't able to do before. And so with this new committee coming on, and we'll have to find more investors, new investors, and for us to sit down as a community and take into consideration our future, the future of Cape Cod, the future of Massachusetts, the future of our young people, the future of the older folks. Because if there's no young people in this community, when the older folks are sick, who's gonna take care of them? So it is really a crisis.
I understand. If you were not selected for this committee, would you still be attending or paying attention to this new ad hoc committee's?
Yes, I
business?
will. Yes, I will, sure.
Thank you.
Council Burdick?
Jeff likes to put me on the spot now, because I said that I always go at the end. Now, I don't know, I think well, Chris got a lot of good questions in there. And I think I've got a good view of your view of the situation. And I don't know that I have any further questions. So I'll pass it along. I'm sure you guys do.
Council Bloom?
Okay. I really like where you're coming from. You know, what you talked about, putting aside differences and getting together, because, you know, when you look at the committee as a whole, you know, it sunsets on September 30th of this year, which is, you know, when it comes down to, it's not much time, you know, so we have to, you know, I'm hoping that the committee can, and this is for everybody,
Yeah.
including you. I'm hoping that these committees can be formed and everybody will work together to produce one product. That's my hope, that it won't be, you know, this group of people saying, well, we want it this way, and this group of people saying, we want it that way. We need to find common ground, as you were saying. So that the committee, and in my mind, if the committee doesn't produce a report, then that committee has been unsuccessful. You know, and that's a darn shame, you know, for everybody to put in all that work and not come up with a, you know, viable direction to go in. So I just wanted to say that, you know, that everybody needs to you know, put their differences aside, as you said before, work together to come up with a direction for the town. And thank you for volunteering for that.
Council Turkelson?
Thank you. Because I'm new to town council and the housing committee hasn't been meeting in the last year. If you had to give somebody like me, if I met you on the street and you said, oh, I'm in charge of the housing committee in the town of Barnstable, I'm gonna give you my 3-minute elevator speech. Doesn't have to be 3 minutes, obviously, but if you could summarize for me, the committee hasn't been active in the last year. If you had to give me kind of the overview of the year previous to that, and maybe a little bit longer, what kinds of things would that committee have been working on and discussing? Were there any things brought forward to the council from the committee when it was actively involved? Just because I don't know a lot about it, because I haven't watched any meetings, because it hasn't been meeting, so I've been spending my time in other places for things that have been more immediate to me. So if you had to give me the background.
So I've only been in that position for the last year that when I was elected. Previous before that, we have worked on several different, so for right down here at the condos that were supposed to be built right down here, we have gone through several different projects. The one over on Independence Drive, we've signed off on that. There are several projects around town that we have done and we were doing pretty good. Even though it was still a struggle getting investors, I think was one of the major problems. The cost of living, the cost of building a house, the availability of land that the town has, that we could work on or build buildings on. There's a lot of things that was still in the pipeline and is still working on. And that's why I'm saying here today, we have to put our differences aside. This is supposed to be top priority for the town of Barnstable. That we put all our differences aside and try to focus on housing. Because we have lost so many, especially younger people here in the town because they can't afford to stay here. When they do put in for application for housing, it takes so long. 5 years, I've seen one person wait and just got an answer. You know, imagine not living anywhere for 5 years, not anywhere where you can really call home. Being on the street, being homeless. It's not a nice thing. When the weather is cold, I can't stand the cold weather. And at times I pass our folks on the street and the temperature, I'm like, God knows how they manage to stay around. So there was a lot of things in the pipeline. There's still a lot of things in the pipeline, but it's still such a big struggle. We're pulling each other instead of coming together and work together. We've worked with the council, different members of the council trying to get things back on board. And I hope with this new council that things will be able to move on because we really need to.
In the lack of the committee meeting over the last year, I'm wondering, have you or the committee members gone to either council leadership or independent counselors and said, you know, this committee is failing, we're not meeting, we need help, and we need the counselors to be helping us? I guess I'm just trying to wonder where the breakdown in that committee went on such an important issue as housing.
The breakdown came about when we didn't have a secretary to do the recording, and that was our major problem. But we would still email each other to update on what's going on, and if there was anything going to like the big town meetings and stuff like that, I still attend, just to keep myself invested in what was still going on. I still get my emails if there's something happening around town meeting, councillors, and if I'm available, I try to make myself available to go, just to be able to even speak on behalf of housing.
The breakdown happened, just point of information, just so you guys know, the Planning and Development Department lost their housing coordinator.
Right.
And that was the one that coordinated and did all of their meetings and meeting minutes. And once that housing coordinator still has not been replaced, that's why the committee didn't meet, because they were not kept abreast of information that was happening within planning development with the position of the housing coordinator that left.
That's helpful.
That's unfortunate, really, for such an important topic that the planning department and somehow the committee and somehow the council, it seems like there's more than one area that broke down there that has left this committee basically flailing in, you know, for the last year and not meeting. So I appreciate, you know, all the work that you've done personally to keep involved. I've seen you at the meetings, you've come and spoken to us, so I appreciate that. And beyond the ad hoc, I guess it's a call to action to get this solved so that we can get that committee doing work that the ad hoc won't be doing. It is a short period of time, as Charlie said. It doesn't end on at the end of September. It needs to be kind of picked up and started over, it sounds like. So I appreciate your honesty here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do want to say it's unfortunate, and I'm sorry that you didn't have the administrative support to help the volunteers do the evaluation and the work that you have been doing. So I understand it's not on your shoulders to necessarily take the minutes.
It's all of us, it's a teamwork, it's a team effort.
Yes. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, I know you said that there's a availability of land concern, and I agree. But I do think that there's also an opportunity for housing in structures that are already existing that need rehabbing. So I think it would be a 2-for-1 is to remove some of the shabby or deteriorating structures that we have and see if there's a vision for bring housing into some of those. One observation I made, this is just mine, I don't know if it's a true trend, but it seems like a lot of the banks are going from brick and mortar buildings to online banking. And if there are buildings like that are going to be for sale, I know there's one down the street, that may be a way to convert already existing structures into possible housing opportunities.
I know the TD Bank North right here on Main Street was a big deal. It's kind of sad. The building is still there. People are still struggling to find somewhere to live. And we're still can compromise and come to an agreement about what we should really do with that building or to make that building available for housing. And that would be such an offset in our community, not only for the people who are coming here for vacation or to be travelers coming here to work and to go back, but the people that are living here permanently. So that is still, I'm not sure what is still happening with that building, but
They're
it's
still
really
working on it.
unfortunately. So.
But thank you for that observation. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I think you said it very well. Because like that TD Bank North building, for instance. Some people like to say how it's architecturally Cape Cod. No, that thing looks like it should be out in Beverly Hills. Give me a word. So what it is that, like you said, we have to kind of come to an agreement. Everybody in the community to kind of something that we can all accept. Instead of, sitting in our trenches and trying to fight everything because it's not exactly what we want. Nothing's ever going to be perfect.
Nothing is ever going to be perfect. We all have to understand, we have to work together. And for a building like that to just be sitting there for years, be sitting there for another 3 years, and every time you call a meeting, you want the people to come out and say, no, what would you like to see in that building? My first question, what would you like us to do with that building if it's sitting right there? And there are people around that doesn't have anywhere. But I try to make it more personal. If it was your daughter, your son, your child, your grandchild that didn't have anywhere to live, and that building was up for housing, what would you have said?
Well said.
What would you have said? What would you have done? Wouldn't you not like to see your daughter, your grandchildren, your son, whatever, a cousin, your mom, be living somewhere? And until we can see that personal and let it be so personal to us, then we realize it affects others, it affects other families that are homeless, or people that are really struggling to find somewhere to live.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Lori Providence. You know that name. How are you?
Nice.
Jeff.
Oh, Tristan. Nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you.
That's very nice.
Thank you. All right.
Good to see you again. So what I'm following, I'll be
Welcome, Lori.
I thank you.
So I'm sure you heard my little thing about compromise and all that. So could you give us an example?
So I worked at Cape Cod Community College for the last 42 years. I've been retired now, I think 4. Still come in one morning a week to help the residents. But I the data, so there's not a lot of compromise with data, because the data is what tells us the story. Although I do have to compromise sometimes with the people, because what they want doesn't make sense sometimes, so I have to make them realize, there's a better way of getting what they need. And before that, I did work with student government and leadership of the clubs and stuff, so there's a lot of compromise there.
Mhm.
Because while I want them to, explore everything they want to do, at the same time, you have to make compromises to rein them in a little, and, make sure they are inclusive of everyone, and that they are somewhat following the rules that they have set up in their student government guidelines.
So when being down here for 42 years.
Yeah.
What do you see as the difference between when you first got here and now as far as housing?
The prices, definitely. When I first started here, I was working at Cape Cod Community College, started in 1979. And I think I was making 150 a week. I was so excited. But I was living with my mother-in-law. And so my husband and I got our first place after living with her about 3 or 4 years to rent. And I don't even know what the rent was, but it wasn't expensive compared to today. It might have been 400, which was devastating to me at that time. But after about, I think, 8 years of renting, our oldest was 5 years old. And there was a house we were renting. She said she'd give us first stab at it. And we bought it for $75,900. And that would have been about, well, she's 43 minus 5, because she's 5. So it would have been about 30-something years ago.
Mhm.
And so now I have 4 grown children. My oldest 43, my youngest 26, and the oldest works Cape Cod Healthcare, Falmouth and Cape Cod Hospital, Spalding Rehab, she does kidney dialysis. And then I have 2 that work for the town of Barnstable, one who works for town recreation running programs as a program director, and one who works at the high school who works with children that are in trouble at the high school, and then she also coaches the varsity girls basketball team. And none of them have housing. It's a killer. A couple have been approved for loans, but they can't buy a house for that. They can't buy land for that. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
So I have, one that was living in Dennis, but then the man wanted to sell it for 1.5 million. And they couldn't afford it. In a good day, he might have been able to get 450 for it. And so they've now moved back in with us, a husband, a wife, and a new baby in January. And then my youngest is in a winter rental, and she just moved back this weekend. So we're a full house right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. My first apartment was 32 Grove Street in Hyannis Park, across from the beach,
Mhm.
$425 a month, including everything.
Yeah,
Everything. So I know what you're saying. My first house.
scary. It really is.
First house I bought was $72,000.
And to think that I say kids, I still call them kids, they're 40s and 30s, but they're doing the nursing, they're in the schools, they're running our recs, they're working at grocery stores and laundromats and doing all the work that we need. And they can't get housing.
My 2 daughters are nurses,
Yeah,
both are RNs, and they neither of them live on the Cape.
well, and mine have grown up here.
Yeah.
They've been here all their lives. Would I love them to stay? Yeah, of course.
Council Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mendes, and thank you for stepping up to apply for this position. What made you step forward now?
Well, I've been watching, and I do come in to speak sometimes, when the dockside was wanting to be built, I did come to speak against that. Not because of housing, but because of the affordable housing being sidestepped and thrown into 310 Barnstable Road in a parking lot. So, those were what I was not for, to have luxury and then sidestep the affordable. And I like to change affordable to obtainable, because the affordable right now isn't affordable. It's not obtainable for everyone. And that's a real issue, like the was kind of excited, the housing behind BJ's now, is it? And I think it's cheapest is 2,300 a month. It's not obtainable to most of our working class citizens.
Mhm. So have you, I know that they have, the housing committee hasn't been, meeting regularly since they've had administrative staff, concerns. But, have you paid attention to what they've been doing or checked their old minutes?
No, I didn't even know there was one. I just watched, on the meetings through the town council. And so I had no clue that there even was one. But I just, want to hopefully be a part of the solution, come up with ideas, because I just think there's many out of the box, maybe ideas that we could think about and, and definitely collect data, because it's important, we can say all this anecdotal, things, but until we are talking to those people in the trenches and getting what their real situations are and the data and how much money they're making and, all the things that are needed to just have a roof over your head.
I hear you, and I know it's one thing to be passionate and to advocate or complain about a particular issue, but you can't, if collected well and analyzed properly, there's no arguing with the data.
Right.
I understand
It
that,
does tell your story.
sure, and sometimes points you in a direction. If you were not selected for this committee, would you still stay engaged or pay attention to
Oh,
what
yeah.
they're doing? Because I think people underestimate the power of showing up, even if you're not a formal appointee, that the public participation brings to the table some ideas. And I have been on committees where people who didn't have to be there show up and have something to say, and my ears perk up even more so because they're passionate enough to come even though they don't have to.
Right.
So that's my perspective. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Councilor Jefferson.
Above and beyond the data piece, that would be the aspect that sounds like you feel is your strength in coming to this committee. Are there any things in particular, you said were not so for the project, because of the affordability component? I'm just wondering if in your experience of the housing issues that are going on in our town, that you've done your own research, and if there are any things in particular that you see as an option that the town hasn't considered, that you're like, the thing we haven't thought about, what are your views besides the data piece that you have personally that maybe have been milling around in the background in your experience, because it sounds like you've been following this issue closely.
Well, just the other day, I think I was reading an article about the old school on 28 there that they want to tear down. It's going to cost 1 million. And the residents are like, absolutely not. We don't want to have it torn down and have to pay
Are
1
you talking
million.
about the Katuitt School?
Yeah, is that the one on 28?
No,
That's
that's the
Marshall.
Marshall School.
Oh, I thought it was that school there.
There's a meeting on that, actually.
It's the one on 28 though, that.
Correct. That's
So
Marshall.
Yeah.
it's already been 20.
It's, yeah,
on 28.
The one in 20.
it's been, it is, there's no building
They
there.
have a picture of it.
That was
Anyway.
the Katuitt School.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm like, well, I don't know the shape of it, don't know how much it would cost to even, but it's like those kind of things, can it be used for housing? Can something be done, even if it needs to be torn and built back up, can things like that? And like Hilda was referencing the bank, other areas around, is there land sitting anywhere? Or just housing, and sometimes I believe I read somewhere, someone gave up their land to have it made into affordable housing. I thought it was obtainable, to be honest. But I think there's a lot of things we can look into.
That's interesting, because actually, they did that in that. Where they
You
converted
know what?
old-
See, I'm from Marion, that's where I was
Yeah,
born and
where they
raised.
Converted old schools to
So,
housing.
yeah, I might have read it there because
No, they
that's
did that.
like. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Councilor Blue.
Okay. I think opening up your home to people in need of housing is a long tradition in your family, because if I remember correctly, was Mary Crawley your
Yeah, Mother-in-law, yeah, foster
And when I
children,
was
right?
doing
Yeah,
child abuse investigations, she was a welcome recipient
hmm
of our children who were in desperate need of housing. And, and another thing that, I got from your application form is that you believe in our diverse community and, and I know that you believe it and you live it.
I live it, right?
Yeah. And I was wondering if have you had any evidence that housing, problems, are possibly based on the color of,
So I can only give my own experiences. My husband, for those that don't know, is African American. And so when we went to get our first house, I told him, look, you gotta trust me. You gotta trust me that I'm gonna, say the right things, do the right things. And it was the house that when we were renting, it wasn't when we went to buy. And I said, you gotta trust that it's gonna be a place we're gonna wanna live and everything, but you can't come. Because I knew right then and there, we aren't getting it if he was with me. And I did, I went and I got it and it is what it is. We just had to, I knew at that time, if we went together, we were not getting that. And that's how it was. Has it changed some? I would hope that it has. I can't say it has everywhere. Because racism is still alive.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Burdick.
The end, right where I like to be, right there at the end.
Mhm.
My question again will be somewhat off topic, because you guys did all the good stuff. Thank you for taking this on, you didn't have to, but I'm just curious about the nature of your work and in the data analytics
Sure.
aspect of it at Cape Cod Community.
So at Cape Cod Community College, the president will make most of his decisions on data, I mean, the ones that need to be done. And so we'll do, what I did, I reported AIRS, which is the higher education, reporting to the state. And then IPEDS, which is the federal reporting. So it's everything from, graduation rates, completion rates. And then there's other kind of data that someone in classes, might have people taking, some DE, developmental ed classes, and see, if they follow the track, how well they do when they get to the college level. And so it's just, it could be all kinds of reporting. I mean, it could be on anything. It could be, we have some courses, let's say English, where they have just straight up English classes, and then some of the English classes will have a person going in and helping students. And do they fare better than those? So
Right.
we can do all kinds of.
Right.
I mean, it could be on the parking lot,
Right, so anything that could be quantified
Yeah,
that you use to make a
yeah, as
decision.
long as it's measurable.
Right, all right, thank
Yeah,
you.
You're welcome. All
Is
right.
I'm
Oh, sure.
just gonna add that, you questioned about the school, there's a public meeting today at Liberty Hall in Marston's Mills at 6 o'clock about that school on Route 28 that's been leveled.
Unfortunately, I am a Grammy who's coaching softball, and we have a game in Falmouth, and I have to coach, and I'm meeting someone because I picked up a housing application for them, which it's 7 years, Hilda. They told me 7-year waiting list. But I got it for them, and they're gonna meet me at the field together.
Oh, that's cool.
So, 'cause they
But
live in
there'll be a second opportunity on May 2nd.
Oh.
And by Zoom. You can visit it.
Yeah, I'll take it.
And that information is on the town's website.
Oh, I've got, right here,
Yeah.
my Barnstable.
Okay, fine, you got it. So yeah, it's at 6 o'clock by Zoom
Okay.
on May 2nd. So it'll be the same opportunity for people like you who aren't able to be there in person. But it's a time to weigh in on and see what the vision is for that property. I think it's 14 acres. Is that right?
Great.
About 14 acres.
Yeah, okay, I believe so.
I'd love to hear what everybody else has to say, but I do have to go.
Mm.
I have to get to that's right, a softball game. So, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Christopher Gregory.
Hey, that's Jeff. It's interesting. Chris, Charlie's effort. Nice for him.
Thank you for coming in, Chris, appreciate it.
Thank you.
So you heard my thing about compromise,
Yeah,
so I want to give us an example.
the organization I work for is consensus driven. You can't get a lot done without having a bunch of people on board, but I have had experiences where I've been working projects for folks where kind of hit a brick wall, even though I felt like I had, done everything they'd asked me to do. And I had to take a step back and try and empathize with them and wonder, what are they afraid of? Like, what's their concern here
Mhm.
that we need to address to get a yes from them? And then pair that with hard evidence that helps allay that concern. And I think that kind of having both that mindset of empathy and the strength of evidence to back you up is a very powerful combination.
Okay, now I see you're interested in both of the committees. Which one would you be, do you feel strongly about? More strongly about?
I think that they both are really important, and so I understand if there's interest in both of them, and I'd be happy to serve on whichever one would have me. I'm not saying that I'd want to be on both of them. That's kind of why I checked both. I understand how zoning influences housing, and I think that committee is interesting because I could see a lot of ramifications from the decisions they make, both intended and unintended. So I want to be really be really circumspect about the decisions that come out of that one. And then how, like, we've already heard from 2 great people about how important housing is. I don't think anyone here disagrees with what they've said so far. So,
All right, great. Councilor Clark.
Thank you very much. So what made you step forward at this time to put your hat in the ring?
I have the excuse that most other people my age have, is that I have, 2 young kids, work full-time job. It's really hard to be participatory in this type of thing, with those constraints, but, at the end of the day, I said, if I can provide a voice for that, section of the community, then I shouldn't make excuses for myself anymore. I talked to my wife about it, and she said, if this is something that's important to you, and we'll find time for you to do it, if they'll have it. So, yeah.
I like that thought process. Have you paid attention to any of the housing committee meetings or minutes, or the same thing with the zoning board of appeals?
I keep an eye on the newspapers, keep an eye on public forums. I read the minutes of the town council when I have time. There's only so much time in the day to consume committee minutes. So I try to, but it hasn't been. It's not the primary hobby of my spare time.
And if you were not selected for this committee, would you still, or these committees, both, either of them, would you still be engaged or being invited to attend or contribute?
I would, it's interesting coming in here. I came in on the assumption that it wouldn't necessarily even be open to people who aren't on the committee to attend. So it's good information, even just to have that that's possible. I would definitely try to. And if I couldn't do meetings, I'd definitely try and keep up on any resources that were put up on the town site about what's going on.
Because I repeat myself, I do think that all these meetings are open to the public, so it, depends on how they how the consensus is formed on how the frequency of their meetings and when and how they meet. We've had to double up on our meetings for appointments to make this happen and work around, not me, but others have a full-time work, not a job that as it is. But I do think that it is helpful and productive to have people like you with young daughters looking out for the future to contribute and to have that investment in shaping the discussions and evaluations going forward, especially with your analytical background. So I would hope that you could see the time and effort to contribute whether you were selected or not. I think that would be valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Burke.
I get a random spot each time. That's good. I'm curious about the nature of your work. Just if you could give us a window into business systems analyst.
So it's a hybrid, business analyst, but also systems administrator for the, customer support system for our organization. So I work for a not-for-profit organization. It's a higher education, research platform, called JSTOR that, undergraduates, colleges use for research. So we serve, publishers, students, librarians, independent researchers. We provide access to prisons and, help people, archive, primary resources for open access. So there's a lot of, moving parts to our business, and we have a very small support team. So it's really important that our system is able to, leverage all the really great spirit that our support agents bring to their job, but allow them to be really productive and handle all the concerns that our participants have.
Right. So it's very technical, but also you're in customer service. Not you.
I'm not personally in customer service. It is technical to some extent, but at the end of the day, it's about understanding the problems that different people have and looking for the best solution you can to deliver a workable and to whatever they're dealing with. It's a lot of listening and understanding and aligning your efforts to the core needs of the people that you're serving.
Right. And then my final off-topic question that I traditionally ask is, how old are your daughters?
My little one just turned 7 months yesterday, and my oldest is 3 years, 7 months.
Oh my. Yeah, so you gotta make time, or would you have to make a deal with your wife in order to have time to go to these meetings?
Well, my parents are snowbirds, so they'll be up soon, so there'll be other resources for watching them out, especially if the committee only goes until the end of September. There will be lots of grandpa and grandma time.
Well, thank you. Those are my questions.
Council Bloom.
I really like the combination you have of, being able to analyze data and, access to large volumes of, relevant, material because of the research that you're involved, that your company is involved with. Do you feel that would be something special that you could provide to the committee?
Yeah, I don't know what kind of license the community college has, but the employees of our company are the only people that have access to everything on the site. So that's, scholarly journals, books, research reports, and connections to research institutions where you could reach out to people at UMass or other institutions in the state and say, hey, we're looking for input on what we're doing. Can you lend some expertise or some consultation to what we're trying to do? I'm sure that there are lots of people who are interested in housing from an academic standpoint who would find our situation interesting and want to help provide a solution in our community.
I think that's a valuable, skill that you bring to any possible committee. But you might regret it because you might end up doing hundreds of hours of research. But, it would be a very valuable contribution. Thank you.
Councilor Jefferson.
I see on your application you gave us part of your mailing address. What village do you live in?
I live in Center.
And just curious about such topics as zoning and housing come up in your social circles. And is there anything, I mean, obviously, like you said, we can all agree we need housing, but there are any other areas that kind of come up that you, in your social circles that give you the feeling of what's going on, maybe in zoning or related to housing that hasn't been expressed here today?
From a housing perspective, I can just say I have everybody else's experience of, running out to grab some formula from the supermarket late at night and seeing people camped up in their car in the parking lot. I'm wondering, if they're gonna make it through the night when it's cold out. My kids go to building blocks on Finney's Lane, and 3 times in the last year, someone there has put up a sign saying, I need to leave on housing, like urgently, please, any help you can get. And that the teachers there are great, they're wonderful people. And they've been lucky not to turn over their staff very much. And that's a great experience for the kids, having the same people throughout their time there. And that's the type of job that's vulnerable to the housing shortage that we're experiencing right now. My wife is a vet at BCA Hyannis, and their support staff has turned over so much since she started there. And I can't say whether the pay is competitive there, but I can say the pay is not substantial enough to allow someone to live comfortably here unless, they have 5 roommates or they're living with their parents, or I don't even know if any of them commute from over the bridge, but that's a whole different thing. From a zoning perspective, one of the things that I want to keep in mind is also kind of a long game of, we need to keep in mind that we might not have as much land period in the future than what we have now. The first house we lived in here was on Redwood Lane in Hyannis. And when we moved there, I ran a simulation to see what would happen if the water levels rose. And it would be beachfront property after a certain point. And that means, Hyannis Port and everything south of Smith Street is gone. Like what we can't really address the climate crisis, but we need to understand the impacts that that's going to have on the available land that we have to work with. And that it's just going to make things more and more expensive. And do we want everybody to be able to live here? Or do we want this to be a playground for the rich and have zoning be difficult for people to build apartments or, convert their cape into a duplex or something like that? Or do we want someone to knock it down and build another shingle style McMansion that they live in for 3 months out of the year?
Here.
You're all set. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
I have to get back to work, but I'll watch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, if you want to stay, but you gotta work, it'll work.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you for your.
Christopher Coon. Welcome again.
Yeah, yes.
How are you?
Good, good. Same. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris.
Hello again, thank you.
I've already asked you to compromise things, so we can skip over that. What do you think is the most imperative thing we have to do as far as zoning goes.
As far as, yes. If we need to revisit.
Can you just only these people at home might not be able to hear you later down the road that want to hear your words of wisdom?
You're generous. I think that the form-based zoning would probably be a good place to revisit. And I say that because I think built into it is the necessity to have to tear things down and rebuild. It becomes a little bit of urban renewal, which I don't think people really want. And it changes the character. We also have issues within zoning that impact the value of property. And the value then goes to the use. It comes from the use as well. But for instance, as an example, Mr. Bornstein is planning on building apartments down on Moose Bay, down in the harbor. And I think it'll be a great project, I'm sure, and there'll be plenty of apartments in there and people will live in them and it'll be fabulous. But the impact is it changes the value of all of the other property on the inner harbor. If Mr. Scudder or whoever has property, the Baxters, whoever has property down there decides they want to sell it, it's going to go for houses. That's going to be the biggest money that they can get. So then you lose your harbor, becomes nothing more than housing. And that's what happens. It's going to happen on Main Street as more and more apartments get built. The value of people's property on Main Street, everybody wants to get as much as they can for their property. So we all suffer from a little bit of greed, I guess, when that time comes. But the fact that we want to get as much as we can just continues to drive the values up more and more and more. And what we can get for the property is based on what the property can be used for. And so you're kind of treading a very narrow thin line there. I certainly have no issue with affordable housing anywhere in this town. My only concern would be with any zoning regulation, you don't want to create a zoning regulation that's going to impact one area or segment of the town that is somehow going to adversely impact what's already there. It's a balance that you got to come up with, and you don't want to do anything that's going to kill what people already have established, what people already have worked so hard to create. And that's one of the reasons I'm not big on the apartments in Hyannis. Not because Hyannis already has, the bulk of the apartments in town, but because the parking, it's all about the parking. And jobs. Jobs are absolutely critical. Hyannis is our job center. This is it. And we got a lot of people make a lot of living, put a lot of food on their family's table, roofs over their head from working on Main Street. And that's something we don't ever want to jeopardize. When a parking space can turn over, it's more revenue for for the merchants in that area. That's why our parking meters, or rather signs, all say 2 hour parking. That's where it came from that, but it grew years ago. I remember being in meetings dealing with parking because we had a problem with the people going to and from Nantucket. They use our parking. my own property on Main Street. I can't tell you how many cars I had towed out there. People just park, go to the island for the weekend, come back. While that car is tying up that space, our merchants aren't getting any money. You know, it's not, it just can't happen. So residential housing and retail really can't share parking. They just can't share it. Retail needs it to turn over. Housing needs a place to park for the weekend. And the last thing you want is somebody who's home for 4th of July weekend and their car's sitting out on the street, in front of their apartment, but it's also in front of 4 or 5 different businesses that they're dying because they don't have customers. I just drove down Main Street just the other night, 7 o'clock, and the beginning of Main Street from Center Street, both sides of the road were filled with cars, and there were a lot of people out walking. It was a good sight. And I looked at my watch, it was about 7:15, but you know, most of these people are here to have dinner. They're out for dinner, and they're taking a walk down Main Street before their reservation or whatever. How many people could do that if we had a bunch of residential people taking those spaces? It would kill us. We just don't, people say, oh, we got plenty of parking in Hyannis. We have zero. We have no parking for a resident in Hyannis to park 24 hours a day and not have to pay. There's not one parking place for that. That does not exist. So every single apartment that comes in, if they don't provide their own parking, we're losing parking for our commercial. It has to happen. Just the way it's gonna be. And there's not a space to find. You can't find space. If people can park at the transportation center, they're paying $10 a day. That's not affordable, you know? Mr. Kirker's got a parking lot on Main Street across from Bradford's, $10 a day. Everywhere you go, you pay. Town lot on Ocean Street right here. I'm not sure what it is, you know, but you pay. That's the only lot we sell an actual year-round parking permit for residents. People that live in this old Masonic building, they are allowed to buy a year-round parking permit that allows them to park 24 hours a day in that lot. But there's only 10 apartments in that building. If there were 100 apartments, wouldn't happen. We went through so much trouble back in the late 70s and early 80s with the traffic going to and from the islands and the parking, and it just, the solution they came up with absolutely works perfectly. 2-hour limit to parking on Main Street, no overnight parking. Down at Ocean Street, you pay to park. It works. I don't know that we really want to change that, and I certainly don't think we want to kind of upset that apple cart either, because it actually works. It does what it's supposed to do. There's still people who get towed, I'm sure, from private properties where they park and then it's supposed to do. For the most part, that's it. Parking is critical. If we lose the parking, the businesses are going to be impacted. The business get impacted, the jobs get impacted. Then it's kind of like a little domino effect. Puritan, they've got a big chunk of property that they own right behind their property, their building. They'll be able to survive because they own their parking. That whole North Street lot, I think it's about 3.5 acres of actual parking. The town owns 2 acres. And they're not contiguous, they're 3 separate pieces. So everybody thinks, oh, that's public parking back there. It's not. It's not. Everybody uses it, but the parking department, they will not write a parking ticket or tow a car from the portion that's not town owned. They can't. When you go further down North Street, by the Santander Bank, that parking lot. That's about an acre and a half. It's entirely owned by the town. And the office building up at the front of it that Mr. Bornstein owns now, and the long, narrow building, office building along the side, all their parking, for the most part, is in that town lot. You go by there in the morning, that lot looks pretty full, you know? Yeah, gladly on the weekends, those people will be home, so the parking lot's open when you really need it. But parking is much more critical than people really often think about it. It's one of those critical matters that, you know, people who aren't critical thinkers don't necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about, you know? And so when the TD Bank building ultimately becomes apartments, there's the property across the street, Mr. Watson owns 3 parcels on the end for Centerville, and then the rest are privately owned, privately owned properties, restaurants, and a club. Their customers only park on the street. There's really no parking for them as it is. So once they end up with another 40, 50 cars, you know, who knows how many cars they're going to be. We have no way to know. So that was probably the biggest oops in the rezoning.
You're talking about form-based zoning?
Yeah, that was probably the biggest mistake, was reducing the parking down from, I think it was like 1.7 parking spaces per bedroom down to 1 per apartment. When I had my property, it was right at the time when they changed it to 3-story zoning. And I had many conversations with Jackie Eston, who was the assistant planner at the time. And she was really the one who created the parking bylaw or ordinance that we have. And a lot of us talked with her about it was great to be able to go to 3 stories and we could put an apartment or 2 up there. It would be great, but you got to relax the parking. You know, we can't do it if we don't have, can't meet the parking requirements. And she was adamant, and at the time, the town, the planners, they were all adamant, you know, we're not changing the parking. We need to keep the parking the way it is. You got to protect the merchants on Main Street. And we're not going to open up the parking for just general public or residential uses. And so consequently, I think only 3 or 4 properties, if that, in Hyannis actually went to 3 stories. It was very, very few. And they may have even had to go get parking relief from the ZBA for their parking. But they went to 4 stories. Everybody thought, we'll go to 4 stories. You know, big argument was, oh, there's an economy of scale here. We can go to 4 stories, we can build that many more apartments, and therefore it makes sense based on the cost of construction. That wasn't it at all. It was parking. As soon as if you have the same form-based zoning that you have right now, but it said 1.7 parking spaces per bedroom, you wouldn't have anybody applying for apartments. You know, that was the trigger. It was the parking. So anyway, nobody pontificating.
No, you answered the question. Made no pontificating. Thank you very much, Councilor Clark.
Thank you. Have you been watching or attending the zoning Board of Appeals meetings?
No,
What they've been up to?
no, I don't even know if the board, does the ZBA have much on their plate these days? I'm sure they probably
Twice a
do.
month.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I've been watching
They
those.
haven't had too much. A lot of stuff keeps getting pushed forward.
Yeah.
If you were not selected for this committee, would you still be willing to
I
participate?
would go to the meetings, you know, I would go to the meetings only because I think it just innately, I'm kind of a critical thinker. And, you know, I think consequences, you know, this, you know, intended or otherwise. And they also seem to be fairly practical and a lot of common sense stuff, you know. So I would go because it interests me. I've always had an interest in regulations regarding land and use, land use in particular. You know. And I understand that zoning is, it's not just a Hyannis thing. It's a town-wide thing. And what the zoning you create on a town-wide basis is impactful for all of the villages. So you got to be very sensitive to each and every village. One of the issues we had with Jackie Edson with the parking that she created, the regulations was they applied to the whole town. And they even applied to, you know, West Barnstable and Marston's Mills and Centerville, you know. They created regulations that those villages, there was no properties within those villages that could meet those requirements, just didn't. So they were there, they applied, but in actuality, you couldn't use them, it couldn't work. You were always going to be thrust in front of the ZBA. So, you know, it's the town kind of does things like that sometimes, you know.
It sounds like you have a lot to contribute. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Turkelson.
I appreciate learning about parking. I do actually know somebody who works as a worker on Main Street. And she quite often in that Puritan lot cannot find a parking space during the day. So sometimes she comes to work extra early so that she can find a space. So as much as we think there's enough parking, you know, we do, like you're saying, it's not just for the customers, but you have to have the people parking to be able to support the business, to have the door open, to sell you the hamburger or sell you the t-shirt or do any of those things. So getting a better grasp, listening to of how important that is. And, you know, I've appreciated the, you know, your guidance and your insights on next door when a topic comes up and, you know, obviously you provide, like you say, the kind of, what was the word you said, practical, you know, subject matter. I think your posting is helpful because it is very fact-based. And it's calm and metered and tempered, which you know, when we get into hot topics, that can be tough. But I think you use, you know, the information at hand that we have at hand to kind of be a guide. And I know that underneath some of our buildings are some beautiful buildings, like on 307 Main. I saw the pictures that were posted, and there's a beautiful building underneath all that ugly brick, which I would agree is not an attractive building in its current
Not
state.
at all. Not one of Ben Thompson's finer moments,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah, so, but you know, it is historical and interesting, and again, I just appreciate where you insert yourself in a thoughtful manner, and you have a long history in the area of areas that are impacted by zoning, I just say, so I appreciate all that, so thank you.
I appreciate that.
Councilor Bloom.
I agree with, your writings have always been reasonable and not the kind of verbiage that arouses conflict. It's factual, and I appreciate that a lot. You said something that I want to clarify in my mind. You said something about when you were ending your answer to Jeff's question. You said, if they, and it's the they that I'm wondering who you're talking about. If they had 1.7 parking spaces, they wouldn't apply. Yeah, who's the they?
The day is globally. They would be any developer.
Developer.
Anybody wanting to develop anything.
Yeah.
If they were required to have 1.7 spaces per bedroom.
Yeah.
You know, they wouldn't, all of the people who have applied wouldn't be applying. They wouldn't, I don't think we'd see it. I'll tell you, I kind of worry because there's two brothers that live in New Bedford who have inherited the old Stop and Shop property. And it's always been for sale, but they've always had a number on it that's double what it really is worth. Sooner or later,
Excuse me, Woodstock is the one
on
on
Main Street, North Street, yeah. The,
Former son.
the former Stop and Shop, I'm sorry, yeah. At some point, they're gonna get an offer that's gonna make a move and they'll sell it. And that's a very big piece of property, very big. Under the current zoning, we could have hundreds and hundreds of apartments there and not enough parking. You know, I mean, it's just a matter of time before somebody comes along and pulls the trigger on it. So it'll be a real eye opener for Hyannis. And even now that with the Hyannis in motel, you know, that's a nice, I want to say, appropriate building. Maybe I'm saying it's an appropriate building because it's been there. It's the only building I remember being there, you know, so it must be appropriate. But architecturally, it fits in. It's been there a long time and people enjoy it. I have trouble understanding how they're gonna, you know, have big buildings in front of it. I don't know. You know, I sent a letter to an email to the historic people and asked them if they could have the applicant put some balloons up or something, show the corners of where that building's gonna be, so that people can go out and actually get an idea of the massiveness of it and how it's gonna fit. Or, I mean, I know you guys all got my email about having a model, but historic, it would be a perfect tool for them to just require an applicant. We need a model of your project. What is it gonna look like? Just a scale model. And maybe include the property that the abutters, so we can see the context, you know?
Well, seeing is believing,
Yeah.
because once it's up, if
Right.
you don't like the way it looks, or
Right.
it's kind of too late
And
now.
at the end of the day, Kristen, you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, the biggest problem we have is we have no exit strategy. Once something's built, we're living with it, whether we like it or not. If there's problems, we're dealing with them, whether we like it or not. There's no exit strategy. We can't go back. So the decisions that have to be made, you gotta make sure you either allow for some exit strategy somehow, or you're damn sure what you're doing is right. You know, so we're all, you know, that one bad decision away from a catastrophe, you know.
The thing I just don't get is that, you know, the parking. You know, I've always been upset about the parking problem with 307. And it's like some people have their heads stuck in the sand about that. And they don't even want to discuss parking. Everything is following the form-based code. So because it's to code, we won't discuss this. I just don't get it.
I don't disagree with you at all, but the building itself certainly is not going to be a loss if they tear that building down. I hate to see that they're going to also take the old CCB&T building down, you know, that's a shame. It is a good spot for apartments. And I think, honestly, I don't know if I'd ever thought I'd say this. Stewie did a fabulous job next door in the old Cape Cod Times property. You drive by there, you'd never know 22 apartments on that property. He did a great job. He honored the existing structure. I'm not saying that somebody should honor the existing TDK building. And that is probably a good spot for some apartments. but not 120, that's, it's just like a little overkill there. I mean,
Say what you may about Stewie Bornstein, he responds to the committees in town.
Yeah. He does.
Whereas I don't see 307 responding much.
no. Well, we respond now, they're looking for a couple $1 million from us, right? Yeah.
But
And
you know,
that-
sometimes I
that's
wish
really
Stewie Bornstein had done 307,
Well,
you know?
right, well, we've got another piece down, down across from the new sewer pump station they're building. So he'll be coming in with that, I'm sure.
Mm.
He doesn't do a bad job, but it's just, usually he's just difficult to do, that's all.
Council Burdick.
Oh, hi. I don't have any questions particularly. I think we've covered it all. We just interviewed you 2 weeks ago, right? So I think.
I'd love to go to South for the start,
But,
the HVAC.
right, same, similar, but not the same exactly. I was just gonna say, we have a lot of people to go through, and out of respect for everybody, rather than rehash or discuss a lot of the topics that may be the purview of this committee. I mean,
I agree. Mr.
But
Cohen.
thank you
I
very
just
much.
want
Fred.
to add one thing. In terms of affordable housing, we have the Community Preservation Act that we buy property with. We own a lot of property all over town. And if you look at the statute, there's a list of all the things that are allowed to take place on that property. Affordable housing is not one of them, which needs to be changed.
It is. It's that
I didn't see
community
it on-
preservation money got $1 million to the affordable housing.
You're right. The Affordable Housing Trust can get money from the CPC and then give it out. That's absolutely right. But what I'm saying is, if the legislature were to include affordable housing in the list of the trails, the ball fields, all the things that are as of right, you can do with that property. And maybe they limit it to 10% of the property, so, to help get to their 10%, the state is telling us we need 10%. So just change the affordable, the CPC legislation to include affordable housing. And we have all that later.
There's 10% minimum for housing, open space and recreation, shared, and historic preservation. So that 10% is a minimum amount going to each of those sectors. And then the remainder 70% is up to the discretion of the committee members, just for you.
I'll have to reread it, but I'm thinking of land,
Makes sense.
I'm thinking of land they already own, that we already own. Once you bought it, now it's land bank property, and you can't build on it.
Okay, we have to.
All right,
Mr. Cohen, hey.
always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
And just, I mean, if you're not on the board, I really hope you're gonna contribute, because we need a mind like that, because there are gonna be people totally opposite from you,
Right,
and so it's always good to have two opposite sides of the spectrum.
absolutely, yeah. I actually enjoyed listening
Yeah.
to the people that were here, because there's a lot of good diversity.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your.
You're welcome, thank you.
Cindy, you wanna bring up Lisa?
Lisa? Lisa?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm here.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
She had a very difficult time trying to connect. She's been trying.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in Portugal right now, so I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I'm glad I finally could log in and make it happen, but sorry, I apologize for the delay.
All right, now you have to bring me a sandwich or something from there. I love the food over there.
Oh my gosh, the food's been amazing, amazing.
Okay, we have quite a few people waiting, Lisa, so we're gonna dive right into it.
Okay,
I'm not sure if you heard earlier about my question about compromise. In coming to
I
compromise.
did not.
Okay, so I'll give you my little spiel. In town right now, we have several issues that are very divisive. And so, in my mind, it's important to bring people to this committee that are willing to compromise and maybe sit in somebody else's shoes to come up to what's best for the town. So can you give us an example in your professional life, not personal, professional, when you had to compromise?
Personally compromise or deal with situations that involve
Only
compromising?
professional, nothing personal, just professional.
So professionally, my background is, I was first a nurse and then went back to law school. And I would say the majority of my career as a lawyer, I worked as an arbitrator. So that's all about compromise. That's all about listening to different viewpoints, trying to find a middle ground, find a place that makes everybody happy, if at least happy enough to reach agreement. So I think those skills are important, you know, in a professional situation like that work situation, but also on a committee such as this, because I've been listening to some of the comments since I was able to log on, and there's a lot of, you know, needs that are pulling in different directions. And I think one of the strengths that I have is that I'm a good listener. I have a lot of compassion, and I really am motivated to bring to my community where I'm living improved, you know, situations, especially in regards to affordable housing. So that kind of measured approach is something that I think I've had experience with and is really important to me. I think calm, level minds, respect for difference of opinion. I don't like the vitriol that is seeping into a lot of the political climate everywhere, locally and nationally. And so I think it's really important to listen and find compromise. So does that answer your question, or is that what you're asking?
It most certainly does. Thank you so much, Councilor Clark.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for making this investment in time and energy to speak to us on your vacation. I'm assuming you're.
Thank you.
Have you paid attention or participated in the housing committees or zoning board of appeals committee meetings before?
I've been starting to do that. I just joined the Civic Association in Katuitt where I live. I've been attending town council meetings to kind of get up to speed on some of the issues and some of the concerns that people are bringing to those meetings. But I will admit that I need to get up to speed on some of the more recent, you know, zoning issues and how the town has been dealing with the concerns. But that's kind of why I'm here.
So what made you come to partner, pique your curiosity and throw your hat in the ring at this time?
So probably the thing that started it was when my mom was living in assisted living, and a lot of her caregivers were driving in over the bridge, moving away because they could no longer afford living here. Talking to people that I work with on some of my volunteer positions that are struggling with housing, and just feeling that I wanted to get involved more and help find some solutions. When one of our friends was talking about recruiting a physician to come to the Cape, and the physicians are young and are looking to find housing, and if a physician can't afford housing here on the Cape, and that's making it hard for the hospital to staff at the physician level, let alone nurses, teachers, other workforce people that we need in order to have a vital community. I think it's an issue that I want to help do what I can. I also served on a land trust board, and I don't think that development or building has to be in conflict with keeping open space and kind of the I think what makes Cape Cod beautiful. I think there are compromises that can be found, and I just want to be part of that process.
That's good. If you were not selected for this committee, would you still be engaged and be willing to contribute?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilor Chuckelson.
Lisa, if say a developer wanted to come to Katuitt and was able to, through say an alternative septic system, propose higher density development, let's just say there was a large piece of land that either the town owned or was owned by, by a citizen, privately held. Would you, what would you think about a higher density development coming into Katuitt?
So I think that before I would make a decision on an opinion on what I would have about that, I think I would need to talk to the people that live in that community, get a feel for what they're looking for. I think that whole not in my backyard sometimes is a problem. And so I think there would be an education piece about where a high density unit would be feasible, accepted by the community. And I think sometimes it's educating that community about what it's going to bring to them if there is resistance to that kind of thing. So I don't think it's my job to make the decision on how I feel. I think it would be my job to talk to the people that live in Katuitt, to talk to the people that feel that a high density building would be desirable in Katuitt, and find out how to get that done if that's what people want. So I think it's about talking to the people that live there, also educating the people that live there about why that would or would not be a good idea.
Thank you.
I like that answer, Lisa. I just have a quick question. It's kind of a clerical thing. On the question, there's a question that was asked of you on the form for applying. It says, are you aware of any such financial interests that would potentially impact your ability to fully participate as a committee member in the committees on which you wish to serve? And you checked yes. And I think you probably, I don't want to speak for you, but you probably meant to say no.
Yes, I'm sure I did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for picking up on that.
No,
I guess that doesn't reflect well on my attention to detail. Oops.
Councilor Burley.
My turn. Hi, Lisa. Lisa's not a stranger to me, and I think you covered it fairly well, so I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for taking time off your vacation.
Enjoy Portugal.
Thank you so much. All right, and thanks for being patient with my inability to get in. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you.
All right.
We appreciate your participation.
All right.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Afternoon. How you doing? Jeff. Nice to meet you. Just come. Hi, Bob. Thank you for having me in tonight. Thank you for applying. Again, thank God it's really not tonight yet, but it's coming quick. So my whole thing about conference.
Sure, and maybe what I can do, I want to put together kind of a statement that you can use it to kind of lead the discussion or just help with sitting taking notes later on. Just kind of the things that I've watched all the interviews that you've done so far today. And kind of look at all the questions that you've asked, so I kind of tried to address those in writing, and save you a little time and stuff as well, so. Sure, and if you don't mind, I thought it might be helpful just to give a quick background on qualifications, and happy to jump into your consensus.
Go ahead.
So, I know you all received my resume, but I thought it might be helpful. All of you, I think, know me, you've seen me in meetings, but probably don't know much about my background or backstory. So I'll try and move quickly, because I know you've got a lot more people here. But my wife and I moved to the Cape about 30 years ago. We raised and we've been full-time residents of Centerville ever since then. We raised our daughter and son on the Cape, both of whom are now married, and given us 3, soon to be 4 wonderful grandchildren who love to come to the Cape and visit Grandma and Papa, as I'm referred to. Well, we've been on the Cape for 30 years. My wife grew up in Western Massachusetts. Her family has a long history and ties to the Cape. Her parents, several aunts and uncles, brother and sister, all owned homes in the Cape for decades. West Yarmouth and Brewster, and family is really why we moved to the Cape. So when I first moved here, I had actually left a career in the financial services, and I decided I'm going to do something completely different. So I started my own business. I gave up my suit and tie, and I started a kitchen cabinet restoration and countertop business. And I did that for a couple of years. So I've owned my own business. I know how hard it is running your business. I never worked as hard as I had ever had in my life until I owned my own business. For me, I had an opportunity, the company that I work with before we moved to the Cape approached me and gave me an opportunity to open up an office in Boston for them. It was a tough decision because, here I was, my own businessman. I like that. I like the freedom, but I was also looking at college educations for 2 kids, one to own their own home. So I made the tough decision, sold that little business and put my suit and tie back on, and I drove to the Cape or commuted to the Cape. I commuted to Boston from the Cape for 20 years. So for 20 years, I gave up 3 to 4 hours a day in commuting. So I know what it's like having to drive and give up some of the sacrifices. So my wife and I have always been involved with the community, volunteer activity since we moved here, not just since we retired. So for years we've been involved, and I think it's helpful for you to understand a little bit about some of the background and things that we've done. I've been on the board and involved with Champ Homes here in Hyannis for 20 years, probably longer than 20 years. I was involved with Paul and Carolyn Hebert years ago. Our whole family would go over there, help with the gardening, cook for the Champs. So we've been involved. I was the treasurer for about 5 years and still on the board over there and a volunteer. I've also been involved with the Centerville Civic Association for about 15 years as a board member. My wife and I were members of the original team that opened up and staffed the family pantries location over at Cape Cod Community College. And one of the activities I probably had the most gratification and enjoyment was I was a big brother for 9 years. To a young man, fine young man from Marston's Mills. His mom was a single widowed mother. He was a triplet, and there was a fourth, so she was raising 4 kids who were all under the age of 2 when she lost her husband. And I'm proud to say, as a result of that, in 2019, I was honored as the Massachusetts Big Brother of the Year, an honor the town council, conferred on me when here a couple of years back. And I'm proud to say my little brother is now graduating this June from Mass Maritime Academy. So very excited about that. And then my most recent activity, my wife and I were part of the group that formed Barnstable Neighbor to Neighbor, which is the group you hear about in town that is working with senior citizens. We were the co-chairs of that membership committee, co-chairs of that. So we had the opportunity to go out and interview and meet with seniors all over the Cape that were in need of services that allow them to stay within their homes. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that given the volunteer activities I've been able to pursue and have been involved with, I've had a chance to see firsthand and work with a variety of demographic groups here on the Cape. The housing insecure and homeless population through my work at Champ, the 20 to 30-year-old population, many of which were both food insecure as well as home insecurity at the Cape Cod Community College and the food pantry. I helped out and worked for almost 10 years with a single mom raising 4 kids, and then the large and growing senior population through the formation and the work that we do for Barnstable Neighbor to Neighbor. So I've seen a variety of demographics here on the Cape, working with them and what the needs are. So I think those are some of the community activities that I've been involved with that will hopefully demonstrate the level of my interest and concern in our whole community, not just 1 or 2 segments. So that's just a kind of quick background.
No, that's saving a lot of notes.
Sure, sure. As to your question about compromise, I'm happy to give an example. I think this is probably about as relevant as you can get. I'll share that with you. This was back in December of 2020. My wife and I have been very involved with some of the discussions regarding short-term rentals and concerns that we had about the short-term rental explosion and what the impact might be on year-round housing. We were part of a group along with 5 of the civic association neighborhood groups that put together some draft short-term regulations that we submitted to the town for consideration during that discussion. And as a side note, I'm sure you've all read the recent story about on the Cape, how STRs have now increased to 18,000 here on the Cape, which is more than New York City, and almost 50% increase on the Cape since March of 2021. That's just 3 years. And those are all homes that are being taken out of our housing stock. So in the email, we encourage the council to establish an ad hoc committee comprised of councilors and citizens to establish reasonable and acceptable STR regulations, as well as looking at zoning and development matters. Ironically, we sit here today, 3.5 years later, talking about the formation of just that committee, type of a committee. In response to that email that we sent to the town council, I received a very nice email from Council Shaughnessy, former Council Shaughnessy. And I'm just gonna read just as one paragraph. I think it's a pretty strong endorsement of my ability to compromise and effort to do what's best for the town. Council Shaughnessy said, "Hello, Bob and Ann, another great email with some terrific ideas. Thank you so much, and as always, I appreciate the two of you and your comments to the town council. I think it would be excellent to hear how prospective candidates plan to move us forward through the items you mentioned, STRs especially, to create consensus, to ensure the residents feel heard and to avoid any further confusion, misinformation that made the process more distressing for residents. Again, I truly appreciate hearing from the two of you. Your comments are well thought out. You provide creative and productive strategies for us to consider, and you care deeply about the town and its citizens. I think the two of you are a dynamic duo and appreciate so much the time you give to the town." So I just share that as something that one of your fellow colleagues has said about, my contributions and feedback to the town. So that's my example of consensus.
Perfect. Council Clark.
Thank you very much. And I am familiar with you, coming to many meetings at town council. And I know that you have invested time in looking at committee meetings before, because I've seen you there. If you were not selected for this committee, would you still be engaged to contribute?
Clearly. I think you can see, for the last 4 or 5 years, I have been following these issues involving particularly zoning impacting the town, STRs, ADUs, single family residential zoning. My wife and I were both regular attendees of the former Zoning and Regulatory Advisory Committee. I personally attended or reviewed, I think, most, if not all, of the town's zoning and housing workshops. I participated in every single one of the online surveys. And as you know, I'm a regular attendee at the town council meetings and the various committees. So I think it's pretty clear that I'm involved and would continue to be involved. Just one note on that, again, just as kind of skills and interest. I'm probably a rarity in that I was a graduate of the town Citizen Leadership Academy, not once, but twice. I took part in the second class in 2003, fellow graduate, Chris Clark. And then again in 2017, when my wife took the program, and Sue French, a good friend of ours, who's one of the facilitators of that program, teased me, I'm the only graduate that returned for postgraduate work. So I think that gave me a good understanding of how town government works and the administration of this town. So fellow classmates include Councilor Clark, Councilor Starr, Assistant Town Manager Clyburn, and Director of Communications Lynn Point. So we've been involved in over 20 years in just some of the administration activities. So
And you do homework.
I do my homework.
Thank you very much.
Council Burdick.
I think it should be obvious that I don't have any questions. There's never been such a streamlined presentation. So good work. I appreciate your attempt to keep things moving, as always.
Council Bloom.
Well, I appreciate your persistence, Bob, as a member of the town of Barnstable and active in so many community involvements. And I know you've been the recipient of a few choice words in the past for your views, and I'm really impressed that you never let that stop you, and you keep on going. And
Maybe they got a thick skin or a thick skull, I don't know.
yeah, and I just wanted to say that, and thank you, as Seth said, for this streamlined,
Thank you, Councilor Bloom.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna take my time to actually ask you a question. So, you've talked a lot about your work in housing, obviously, and I know that you attend the LCPC meetings. I know you're up to speed on so many areas of what goes on in our town. I'm just curious, I see your application is checked for the zoning.
Yes.
You didn't check both, you checked zoning. You obviously have a history with housing. So tell me why zoning.
I think in one of the previous interviewees mentioned it. I think that, a lot of what can be done in the way of housing goes back to the zoning. I think it's kind of the underlying issues, things that need to be established. Quite honestly, I think there are people that are probably, better informed, on some of the housing issues, and I thought I would play to my strength. I think one of the things I pointed out in my qualifications, I spent 40 years in the financial services community, advising senior management teams and looking at volumes of legal agreements, mergers and acquisition agreements, sophisticated financial models. I pride myself in my ability to review and assimilate large amounts of data and synthesize that to key issues in a fairly quick, short timeframe. So I think that's what's going to happen here. The zoning regs, chapter 240 are over 200 or almost 200 pages. The regulatory agreement is like another 15, 20 pages. In some of my conversations, I understand that, it's going to be up to the chairman of this committee to determine exactly which items. They're not going to be a wholesale review of all the zoning. There's going to be key issues like the farm-based zoning, probably some of the short-term regulations we've used, particularly things that impact some of the housing issues. And I just felt my strengths and where I could contribute the most with the zone.
I appreciate it. I know that we have a lot of skills in a lot of places, so I could easily, if somebody wasn't looking at the piece of paper, they could have easily thought you might have been applying for housing as well.
Sure.
Because I'm sure you would exceed there as well. So thank you.
Everybody else, just a follow-up.
Yeah, sure.
I do see you at all the meetings and stuff, which is great. In your opinion, and there's no right or wrong answer, it's just opinion. How do you feel about building in the outer villages? When I mean outer villages, I mean outside of Hyannis. What's your feelings on that? Because as you know, these other villages are gonna have this, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm probably not gonna get into too much details because I think there's a lot of other opinions I'd want to hear from the members of the committee, but I certainly think, for example, the Marston's Middle School property, which the meeting is tonight, I think that's a prime example of where they should be looking at some, multi-dwelling properties. I think it's something that they need to be thinking about. There are other places in town. I also think it's important. Some of the, properties that have fallen in disrepair or abandoned, those need to be looked at seriously. So I think there's a lot of information, a lot of opinions that need to be solicited, but I certainly think that's something that has to be looked at as part of the process. So.
Great. Everybody else all set?
I just make one final comment,
Go ahead. Go
I have
ahead.
one request for the committee. I've watched all the interviews up until now. I've looked at the rosters, the agendas. You've got 35 people who have applied. About a quarter of those people who have applied are people who either currently serve on or have served recently on some of the other committees in town. The planning board, the local comprehensive plan, the housing committee, the human services committee, the zoning board of appeals. I would ask this committee to honor the town council's request for and commitment to appointing a diverse group of citizens. And I ask you to please give some of the other well-qualified citizens, some like me, who have applied multiple times and never been selected, an opportunity to serve on these important committees. And not just appoint the same faces, the same voices that we've seen over the last several years get appointed to multiple committees. So, yeah, as an aside, I think that the other subcommittee, which is councilors only, that are looking at the town council rules, should be looking at those closely and thinking about setting some sort of a limit on the number of committees any one person can sit on at the same time, as well as some sort of a term limit for committee and board members. We have term limits for councilors. Why wouldn't we do that for our boards and committees? We have people who have been on committees for years and they just can't get off because, well, they didn't say they wanted to get off. Well, we hear we want to have a diverse population. We want to hear many voices, but then again, we see the same faces over and over again on multiple committees. So I would ask you to, I would just say as a side as counselors, something that should be considered in that other committee. So, and then my final thought, again, because 307 Main is quite the topic right now, and I have not done much digging in on that. But I think one of the things that's very interesting, if you look at that property, and I've looked at the application, they're talking about a $665,000 per unit construction cost. That's right in the application. And we've heard one of the councils recently say that affordable housing is so expensive to build, that's why they have to build so many in the volume. And what concerns me is that our town and planning department are not looking at some of the other creative solutions. This is an article, feel free to take a look at this later on. This is from the Wall Street Journal around about a month ago. And it talks about what many of the creative developers are doing. And they're looking at, rather than going to the government money trough to get all the various government loans, they're doing private financing. And you'll see I've highlighted a couple of the relevant sections where you're looking at developers in Los Angeles. And you can't tell me that Los Angeles affordable housing development is cheaper than Cape Cod.
I was just there 2 days ago.
And I grew up there, went to college there, so I know that area. These developers, by going to private money, and it explains a bit about these impact funds that banks and others are required to put together. They're finding a way to drive down the per unit cost. One is building a series of buildings, affordable housing for, I think it's 291,000. Another one has got the cost down to 220,000 per unit by looking at creative solutions and not just saying, oh, I'll put $1 million in equity down and borrow the rest from government funds. That's the way it's always been done. That's the easy way. That's also the way that dictates the need to build 4-story buildings with less parking because we got to get as much as we can done. Look at creative solutions. Let's not just talk to the first developer that knocks on our door and said, here's a proposal, let's do it. Let's go out and talk to the developers. This is not a for against 307 Main. I'm just saying, if we're going to do this, and this is an issue, why are we not looking at other options and creative solutions to the problem? So just something for you to take a look at in your leisure afterwards.
Thank you very much.
You
All right.
gave us more homework than we gave you.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the chance to interview.
You're welcome.
Thank
Kathy Richardson? And just give me 1 minute, Mr. Schultz, can I have a quick word?
Yeah, sure.
Bob,
Yes.
everybody.
Handshakes. Thanks, pleasure. I'll be right back. I'll go back to the.
Oh,
I know everybody. We'll see every last off the table. Yes.
I'll say my hellos in a quick.
Oh, yes, a great idea.
Chris Clark. Thank you.
sure.
Yeah, if you do, I'm happy to give it. Oh, yeah, okay.
Very end.
Thank you.
Kathy, do you live in West Side?
Yes, yeah.
Where do you live?
Yeah, I just saw that in the PO box.
Yeah.
I wish we could.
Well, we owned the property for over 30 years and we moved to the,
Maybe we check the meeting. I mean, but sure, yeah, thank you very
Sure.
much. Thank you very much.
We're gonna get started.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you, giving us that application. And, is there anything that you'd like to explain further beyond your application? And what you sent to us?
Anything I would like to explain further? I guess I would just,
have you got an extra copy or?
I'm not sure.
Newspaper on it? I'll,
If you wanna ask me.
see if I can steal some of your thunder.
No, I see that you attended the Citizens Academy and that you've been involved in your community.
That's okay.
What was it that motivated you to sign up to this, these committees? Because you signed up both of them.
Let's see, I've grown up here, and I have been, I was in real estate, I'm retired now, for more than 25 years. My very favorite, most precious memories deal with first-time homebuyers. And I just have and then when I did sell homes, I always made extra personal contributions to the Housing Assistance Corp, which I think is just a fabulous entity. And I just had a passion for getting young families housing, I guess you can say.
And then I just saw, I was reading the Barnstable People, a couple of weeks ago, and it was, very last minute that I put in the application. I read the paper, I can't remember, I think I got it on a Friday and said the, sign up date was that Friday. And I kind of filled in the application without, understanding fully what the responsibilities are. But now through listening, I have a sense of that. Let me see, I enjoy doing research. And I'm pretty good with people, and I just want to, oh, my other thing, I'm tired now from them. But I think our counselors work very hard. So if I can do something to help them be able to make a sound decision, I just feel like that's really important that they're supported.
Now, have you looked at or attended any of the meetings for housing or the zoning board of appeals before?
Okay, so I have not dealt with the zoning board meetings. I have been to a number of the housing meetings that they were offering. They haven't offered them in a while, but I used to go to some of the ones that they were information for the town, for town citizens as to what some of the issues were with housing. So I have done that. And then today, gosh, I had this interview and I spent like 4 or 5 hours clicking on everything. And it's one heck of a complex issue. And there's a lot of considerations that need to be thought about carefully. And so I'm very interested in helping and in learning more and in helping pull something together.
Thank you for your interest. If you were not selected to this committee, would you still be willing to
Sure.
participate and
Oh, sure.
contribute? I do think that public participation is undervalued by people who in the audience, because we are listening.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Well, okay, you've heard my thing about compromise,
Yes.
and I'm not sure if Council Clark asked you anything about that. So if you could just give me a example in your professional life where you had to come to compromise.
Let me see, in my professional life, it was constant compromise. Because I was a realtor and I was working with buyers and sellers. And everybody's point of view was hugely important. And I think one of the things that I, in general, learned was great was giving value to each person's point of view. Not just blowing somebody off and saying, oh, no, that's stupid or that's wrong. I found that it was helpful to just make sure that you listened and give value to whatever someone felt was important. And worked out well.
Yeah, I know plenty of real estate agents and a lot of nightmares with that type of thing. Councilor Chuckles.
On your applications, it reads that you completed the Citizens Leadership Academy. When was it that you did that?
Honestly, it's like embarrassing to say, and it was interesting to hear the former applicant say that he went twice. I was thinking that things have changed so much that I probably should go again. It was very enjoyable, and I have the picture at home, and I'm not sure. It was years ago. It was years ago.
And you said you were formerly a town meeting rep.
Yes, that was when we had different form of government. I was elected as a town meeting representative. And that was when, instead of having town councilors, we had town meeting members. I don't know. We would go to the Barnstable High School and all the town meeting members would sit and vote on things and listen to issues and vote.
So if you were elected, how was it that you, ran or you?
It was so
I'm
hard.
just
Yes,
curious,
I'm sure that it was.
You know, what
Yeah.
kind of work you had to put into becoming elected to that
It wasn't
position?
hard. It wasn't hard. And I believe that I did have to run and that I believe that I was elected. It wasn't appointed. I don't think. It was when Mr. Alger was the town moderator. He was just a wonderful gentleman.
In seeing in the paper this call to action now, the question that Chris usually likes to ask, and I'm going to take it is, Why this committee now, or these two committees now versus, obviously we're involved in town government.
Yes.
You've been here a long time. So what's the interest now that's been renewed again?
Let me see, I retired, so I have, in theory, I have time. I have perhaps more time than I did have, although it seems to fill in quite quickly. So that was a biggie. And also I just saw it and I just have had a passion, for getting young families into housing. So, that's it. All right, thanks.
Council Bloom.
You mentioned 1968 earlier. What was that? What was significant about that year? Was that the year you moved here?
Oh, in 1968, I didn't remember that. I said,
Did you graduate?
no, I graduated in 73.
73.
Yeah, and, I don't, let me see.
But you have been here
I've been here
quite a
since
while.
since I was 10 years old.
10 years old,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, you've seen a
Oh,
lot
I
of the
said I'm
changes.
68 years old.
Oh, you're 60, okay, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I'm sorry, yes, I'm going, that's 1968.
I gotta dig out my ears here.
sorry.
Hearing is, but you've seen a lot of the changes.
Yes,
You know,
indeed.
and so are you, do some of these changes have you concerned?
Yes. Yes, yes, I think that, it's very difficult. I don't like to judge because I think people have worked very hard and there's a lot of criticism out there. I think people do the best they can. I think there's a lot of darn regulations out there that people don't realize that everybody has to adhere to. And there's time frames that have to be met and all these sidebars. I have seen a lot of change. I haven't necessarily agreed with it, but I'd like to stay open-minded about it because I don't know the inside story. So there you have.
Thank you.
Last but not least.
As last but not least, so I don't know, I was absent for the first few minutes of what you were saying, so I don't know if this, okay. I don't know if what I'm gonna say is gonna be redundant. But first, I always like to ask about your career and your work. And any highlights, or what you can just.
Okay, so, let me see, I've been a real estate broker predominantly for, the past 25 years and I retired. And we've raised 3 children here, we built a home in Hyannisport in the 1980s and we've been there, raised our children there since then. Let me see, I have done a lot of volunteer things, but this is, I had to back off for a while and now I'm retired, so I'm hoping to be effective in civic rent, I guess, is what people term is important, and I think that's important. So,
Absolutely, are your children, do they still live on the Cape?
only one.
Uh,
I was fortunate to help her get a house before that.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And then just briefly, what is your take on, we've sat here now for over 2 hours waiting to get up here and listen to all the different perspectives that we've heard thus far. And just briefly, what is your take on these topics, just broadly?
On the housing and the zoning, let me see. I have a genuine, concern for the density of perhaps of some of the things that have been allowed. And then I have visited, some of them. And my passion is for families and young children and young families to be able to live here. And so I don't see that the housing that's being offered is a place where I would want to raise my children. I see it as a hotel room. That's my take. But again, I've only done a minimum amount of looking, but I realize that for the amount of housing that we need, we have to have apartments. But I would just perhaps like to see them less dense, perhaps like to see things that would be more open for families to live happily, comfortably, not in front of it. Perhaps have a park, a yard,
Right.
something.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for your 5 hours of research.
Yeah, yeah, right. Oh, my goodness.
Please stay engaged.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Mr. Devano, you're up again.
I've met you guys pretty much everybody before.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good.
Welcome
Good
back.
to you.
Same here.
Nice to see you.
Hi, we didn't.
Rod,
you know,
see you again. Yeah, you weren't here. It's nice
Sorry,
nice
I'm
to see you again.
She's the whirlwind traveler.
Well, so you have to travel.
No, you can probably not, so.
Sorry
about that.
Sorry about that a second ago. I didn't mean to be, I thought you were in a recess, so.
Oh, no, no worries. I already asked you about compromise, so we don't have to get into that. Where you're a business owner,
Yes,
how has housing
it's a big
affected
problem.
your business?
So I have 21 employees. I'm right here in Hyannis. I grew up in Centerville. You can hear a little bit of my background. I went to Cape Cod Tech. All my friends live throughout the Cape. My business covers southern Massachusetts and the entire Cape. So I'm in thousands of people's homes. I talk to thousands of different people. I take care of majority of the homes on Seaview Ave in Osterville and in Oyster Harbors, all the way to working on little tiny houses here in downtown Hyannis for people. So I'm everywhere. I'm, you know, from Sandwich to P-Town, I'm all over the place. I know a lot of people are loving this town sewage going in, which I think it's wonderful too. I think it's great because we're saving our, I'm a fisherman, I'm an avid outdoorsman. But a lot of people want the town sewage because they think once they get town sewage, we're going up and I'm gonna have, you know, I'm gonna be making $20,000 a month out of my house. I'm not a huge fan of that to happen. But my guys are all looking for homes and they're very expensive right now. My son bought a house in Katuitt behind Pepper's Pantry back in probably 2012 for $200,000, his first home. And now he lives in Comaquid. He's married with 2 little boys. And he bought his house there for 4. Now his house is probably worth 9. Where he is in Comaquid. They've gotten so expensive. But what really made them expensive, and I don't know how far people think back, but all the way up until like from 2008 to 2018, nothing happened. I mean, those houses didn't move at all. COVID drove these prices up. I couldn't tell you how many people's homes I go in and they've moved to Cape Cod because Cape Cod is the only place where there's clean air in the entire world to breathe. And I'm being serious. I mean, that's how people feel. So I think that's changed. Like I go in people's houses, like I was listening to what everybody, I don't mean to get off base, but what everybody was saying earlier about, you know, housing and like, you know, all the people that are here now, well, these houses are full year round now. People don't leave. They don't want to live in New York anymore. They don't want to be in an apartment building. They don't want to touch the same elevator button, you know, 300 people touched before them. And that was like an eye-opening experience, I think, for a lot of people. So everyone loves the Cape. And the Cape was always, I heard the gentleman before me talk about short-term rentals. And a lot of people hate short-term rentals because they don't want to see the cottage next door to them that's been a short-term rental place for 75 years since we were kids. And they're like, well, I don't like seeing different people there and the kids are noisy, but that's Cape Cod. And so if you buy a house next to an airport, you got to deal with the planes taking off. You know what I mean? So I would not want to, I wouldn't be pro abolishing that. I think Cape Cod is a place where people come, they want to rent a home for the week with their family and enjoy the Cape. And it's always been that way. We do need housing. Apartment buildings are a good way of providing that. My daughter is a ultrasound technician, and she lives in Dorchester right now. And I don't want to see Cape Cod become Dorchester. I mean, we have a lot of three-story buildings now. I keep hearing this apartments, everybody, you know, and I worked for 18 years on Nantucket doing HVAC. And I don't know if any of you guys go to Nantucket at all, but they've basically destroyed Nantucket. And I hate to see that happen here. I mean, there are places we can do it, like you mentioned, compromise, and I don't know about doing a lot of that kind of stuff downtown here. I mean, to me, I think, you know, maybe like and again, parking's an issue. I mean, all this stuff, it's like hard to deal with any of this stuff. I don't, you know, somehow we need a parking garage. I don't know where we build that because you can't go down. I mean, everything has to go up here. Yeah, it's, you know, maybe somewhere in the industrial park or something could be built to handle the parking, and we could have a little trolley system but you want people to come here and enjoy what we have, because that's what everybody wants to do. Come here, enjoy the beaches, the waterfront, the boating. Yeah, I don't know if it's the proper word, but like the charisma of Cape Cod, and what brought everybody here was that. I mean, you know, we're all similar age. I mean, when we were kids, you couldn't move on Main Street. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I've driven up and down Main Street, you know, and it's.
Raise your hand if you're guilty.
So it's, you know, like I think Main Street should have more to offer. I think there should be places like me and my wife want to go out. Sometimes she'd be like, where can we go and go dancing? I mean, I'm 60 years old. We still like to go out and have fun. And there's no place to go. So we've closed all that stuff. It's all gone. Like Main Street, you know, Guido's, there was 6 or 7 nightclubs on Main Street in Hyannis. There's really none left. So I think some of that kind of stuff could possibly happen, like in a very nice, classy kind of way on Main Street. I mean, I don't know why it doesn't. I don't know if it's not being allowed. My business is right off of North Street. I'm on Bassett Lane. And, you know, this place, I mean, this is kind of an area for businesses and residential. I mean, there's no industry here. Everybody's either in the retail business, you're in the construction business. So bring it, I mean, I don't know how we're gonna bring the cost of building down. Cost of construction is like through the roof. Houses, I think, are gonna come down. I mean, Florida right now is like falling off a cliff, and that usually happens, and you're gonna see it come all the way to here, and there'll be some sort of a correction here too, I think. I keep hearing it's the new Nantucket, you know, I talk to people about this stuff all the time. That's why I wanted to try and maybe get on the zoning board, so I could at least, you know, bounce my ideas off everybody, and I don't know how everyone else feels, but it's like, I'd hate to come down here and be driving past nothing but 3- and 4-story apartment buildings and no place to park, can't come and you know, the businesses on Main Street, I mean, they suffer in the summertime. There's no parking for anybody. I mean, those are really some of the bigger issues we need to deal with. I mean, we can't house the United States of America around Cape Cod, so I don't know why we keep trying to build more dormitories to put more students in. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're gonna bring the cost of real estate down. That's gonna happen on its own. If it ever does happen. I mean, I don't know what would drive the people away from the Cape. You know, I mean, once you visited this place, why would you want to leave? But COVID did a lot to it. I mean, a lot of people are here permanently. I mean, I go into Oyster Harbors and most of those houses are vacant all winter long. And people are living there year round now. Their kids are here. So they moved here, their kids have moved here, their cousins, and everyone's trying to move to Cape Cod. And I personally think it was all COVID driven. A lot of it was, you know, I don't know if that's really but that's how I see a lot of it, you know, and, you know, I'm rambling on.
But, you know, you brought up a couple things. First, the housing, nationwide housing crisis per se.
Mhm.
What happened in 2008 when we had the big crash?
Yeah,
They stopped building.
yeah.
We had 1 million home surplus.
Mhm.
We never started building population, so now we have a 4 million home deficit.
Yeah,
And as you said, with COVID, people converted their summer homes into full-time
Yeah.
homes. You know, and, you know, like you said about, you know, part-time rentals, we've always had, it. They're just online now.
yeah.
That's the
Everybody's,
difference.
everybody's
Winter
renting their
rentals.
home. And
We all have.
some people are renting them to survive at this
Absolutely.
point. I mean, it's hard to survive today. I mean, I heard so many things like the cost of, like my daughter's renting an apartment in Dorchester. There's 3 bedrooms, there's 3 different girls. It's $5,000 a month
Yeah.
that they're paying for that place. I mean, and down here, like, so John Callahan just did the above the 99.
Mhm.
So I guess an affordable apartment's $2,200 a month. I mean, that's not affordable to me. I mean,
Not when you're making 20
I
bucks
pay
an
my
hour.
guys a lot of money. So my guys are anywhere, so an apprentice is making $25 an hour. And that's a kid that either just graduated from high school or just getting started. And I pay guys all the way up to $50 an hour, you know, plus all their bennies. But the guys that are making $50 an hour still can't buy a home. I mean, and I don't know how much money people are gonna be able to make on Cape Cod. I mean, what kind of jobs do we offer here that pay more than that? I mean, to me, that's probably the pinnacle of what you're gonna make here, unless you're a doctor or something, and, you know, so I don't know how we're gonna control the cost of housing. I mean, or bring it down in any way, shape, or form, or other than putting up like apartment buildings. I mean, I have a shop in the industrial park, and I drive through there all the time, and it's kind of sad when you get down to Mary Dunn Road. It all used to be nice and wooded, and now it's just all apartment buildings.
Yeah.
You know? I mean,
We used to do a lot of partying back
So,
then, so
yeah.
I know it well.
I mean, and I get it, like you said, it has to be compromised, but the industrial park was supposed to be for industry, and now we're filling it up with housing. And you know, it's that's why I was trying to get on the zoning board.
Councilor Clark.
Thank you. So what motivated you to put your hat in the ring for this?
They've been, Paul Nary's a friend of mine, and, you know, he wanted me to come and just, I'm a local guy. I mean, I'm very easy to get along with. I guess people would want me to come up and get on something, be somewhat involved. I mean, I run a business, so I'm very busy. But you know, I also care deeply about the Cape and the town of Barnstable. And if there's anything I can do, and, you know, I'm not one of these guys that's like, no, that's never gonna happen or anything like that, but there's a place for everything too, in the way I look at it. I mean, and we are running out of land. I mean, like you were just saying, you know, about stop building in 08. But there's no big tracts of land left. Like, you know, what happened in Centerville in the 80s, that's done. This stuff is built, it's here, it's not going anywhere. I'm assuming that, as far as I knew, it came out is that was all gonna be like some kind of a, like a Derby Street type plaza with housing above it.
I don't think there's any house.
No more housing, that was, yeah,
That's all, controlled by the airport. You can't have house.
all right, so,
The builder's intention was to put housing above every single retail
Yes.
position that was there.
that's what I thought was gonna happen.
But the FAA controls the land,
Mhm,
and they said no because of the height.
yeah,
Actually, I spoke with Katie Service today. It was more because of the noise, restriction.
well, yeah.
I also heard that the airport doesn't want to be a landlord.
Yeah.
It's not
I'm
just,
sure.
it's not only an FAA situation, it's that, you know, the airport
Mhm.
has a better lease now, so they don't need to be a landlord to host them, so
Yeah, it's,
they may be making their money enough that they don't need the headaches of being a landlord.
I mean, they don't do anywhere near the business they used to when like it costs so much money to fly now. When I used to go to Nantucket before every day,
$25.
you couldn't move in that parking lot. Now
parking lot's empty,
Yeah,
you know, but I guess they charge enough money for the jets coming in and out now. But the, you know, we do have to address those issues, they need to be, and I know you guys are all involved in all that stuff, trying to figure some of these, like, and I deal with impossible tasks all day long with 21 people and the amount of work we do, and every day is nothing but compromising and trying to get through every day and make things happen. But it's the same thing in the town. But parking is a huge issue. Like, I'm a boater. I don't know if anybody here is a boater. But try and use a boat ramp in the summertime. There's nowhere to park. And not even in the summertime. Right now, the squid showed up. So you have everybody from Rhode Island to southern Boston trailing their boats down here every night to go out and go squid fishing. And, you know, and then chasing the scup. And they're not doing it for fun. They're trying, everyone's trying to make money, even though it's illegal. But, but the, you know, like I have a boat at Hyannis Marina, so I swore I'm never gonna have a trailable boat again, because I just can't deal with trying to go out to Sandy Neck or park down at Princess Cove and try and go out to Sampson's for the day, and I enjoy every like I said earlier, of the Cape. We mountain bike, I hunt here, I fish here, I boat here, I walk my dogs, I have hunting dogs. I use this is like God's land to me. But and I've been all over the country, because I go all over the place hunting and all that kind of stuff, but it's, you know, once you come here, you fall in love with this place, and people can't leave. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be in all lifestyles. But I mean, I have a lot of friends who have migrated to the Cape, and they, you know, once they get here, they never leave. And the kids that do leave always come back. So, but it's getting harder and harder to come back. My daughter's having a hard time. She wants to come back, and she's probably gonna have to move to Plymouth or something, because it's just so expensive here. Yeah.
Councilor Turco?
I just want to know, what do you hunt on Cape Cod? I'm assuming deer, maybe?
I hunt deer, pheasants, quail, all that kind of stuff, but I grew up doing it.
Yeah.
My
no, I was
father was a
curious.
hunter.
I mean, you get the deer
Yeah.
part, I just didn't know. I think it's
We still do a lot of bird hunting. There's a lot of, I don't waterfowl hunt anymore, but a lot of guys, that's huge on the Cape. You know, but I hunt all over the place. We go to like Kansas every year, Montana, all the close states, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Maine, Vermont. I'm all over the place. My son hunts, my whole family, my brother. But it's just a lot of those old, you know, things still happen here. I mean, people
Yeah, no,
don't realize.
I don't think, but you know, I know people do actually go after the ducks where we walk, so.
Yeah, you know.
Not very often, but I have seen them.
Yeah, and and like when I was a kid, there was no gates on any of the conservation areas. We used to drive our cars and trucks in there, and you know, now everything, there's so many people in the woods, it's unbelievable. But it's, you know, there never used to be anybody in the woods. You know, that was, the only time you'd see other people in the woods is during hunting season. Otherwise, there'd be nobody out there, and maybe some dirt bikers or something, you know. Now, I mountain bike, my kids, my grandkids mountain bike. We spend a ton of time in the trail tiers, and we go all over the place. But it's nice. We're very fortunate to have it.
Yeah.
And we want to keep it all open for everybody. I mean, one issue that happens, which, again, I'm terrible once I start yakking. But, you know, everybody wants to tailor everything to their own personal liking, and that's why you guys are all here. And to try and, you know, because everyone wants it to be their own little thing, and that people come here, and as soon as they get here, they want to change everything. And it's like, they want it to be what they left, and it's like, well, why don't we just leave it the Cape?
Yeah, used to call them bridge closures.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to talk too much, these other guys wanna.
But you're right, we all grew up hunting down here, every
Yeah.
single one of us, all of us did. Councilor Bloom?
Rod, you know, Nantucket a lot better than I. It's been like 8 years since I've been over there.
Mhm.
What is, you mentioned that, Nantucket went sour.
Oh, God.
What's the lesson there for us here?
Well, they took like quarter-acre lots and have like 4 houses on it. There's no parking. Like, they want to start limiting the amount of cars that can go over there, because there's no place. I went over there, so I stopped working over there probably about, maybe 2018. I stopped going over there. It's just too chaotic, too odd, the traveling, taking the boat. But you can't, there's just no room. You can't, I went over there with my wife, 2 summers ago for a weekend, and we couldn't go anywhere to eat. I had to cook on the boat. It's just too many people, too many cars. It's like, and eventually I think they've ruined the whole, like, Nantucket. A lot of the people who grew up there are all leaving. They're all selling off and they're moving to Maine, Florida. My father-in-law lived there. He's in Florida now. He sold off his place, but all the old, like the Reeses and all, they're all selling their land. They're getting out of there. A lot of them are dumping everything because and if you drove around there and you were there 8 years ago, so there's probably quite a bit going on 8 years ago. But it's like driving around in Dorchester and a lot of Nantucket now, and they're still talking. I just got a set of plans to do 165 unit building over there. And I'm like, where are they gonna put this thing? And where are you gonna put the cars? I mean, the people just gonna, it's not like Boston where you can get on a train and get on a bus and stuff. I mean, around here, even though we do have a little bit of bus service, people need vehicles. And like my own, when my daughter's here, I mean, is my car, my wife's car, my daughter's car, her boyfriend comes, his car's in the yard. I mean, it's hard to limit the amount of vehicles, but yeah, Nantucket, they got like way bigger headaches than we have.
I didn't realize it was that bad.
Oh, and try and get on the boat and go over there, or bring a vehicle over. My brother just had to bring a truck over to do a job, and it was like almost impossible. And it's not even summertime yet, but it's, I just hate to see us get on that same road. I don't really know how to approach the whole housing thing. But, I know we've had, what's it, 2 stories in certain areas, it's 3 stories. And now everybody's looking for 4 stories and.
I don't think, somebody mentioned, 600,000 more per unit at 307.
Yeah.
I don't think your guys and your co-workers are going to be able to afford to pay the rent or mortgage or whatever
Yeah,
on something like that.
no. I don't see, I mean, the average person on the Cape, it takes 2 people now to be able to afford a home with good jobs.
Say you take 2 of your guys living together, they have 1 space,
And
one
it's
parking space in that place.
exactly, and another thing you have to take into consideration is this whole, climate change is gonna affect the cost of our lives. And as we keep switching more and more to electricity, the people that are using electricity to heat their homes, it's outrageous. I mean, they're paying $1,500, $1,800 a month, $2,500 a month just for electricity. And that problem's not going away. That's gonna keep going. And eventually it has to, there's gotta be a limit to where people are gonna just stop buying houses because they can't afford them. And I think we're there. I mean, other than people who are coming here that have a lot of money to either help their kids out, because I don't know if they're borrowing the money to buy these homes. I mean, rates are up. Yeah, a lot of it's cash, because I talked to the realtors, and so it's like, where's all this money coming from? But everybody wants to come to the Cape. Like I said, I can't blame them, but I don't know how we're gonna build ourselves out of this, because there's no place really left to build. So if we're gonna take like a little tiny piece of land that we have in Hyannis, and you're gonna put, you know, a 70-room apartment building up on it, where you're gonna park, if there's 70 rooms, you're gonna have 140 cars. You gotta, you know, and they're not really affordable either, once you're done with them. I mean, John Callahan's a friend of mine. I mean, the girl that works in my office was trying to, she makes a little bit too much money to get on any kind of like assistance. And she can't afford to, she can't pay $2,200 a month for rent. So she's struggling. Luckily she found a place, somebody had an apartment. But I mean, I think we're better off to let people, if they have a garage with an apartment above it, maybe let them rent the apartment out. I mean, there's gotta be other approaches to try and, but you know, again, you run into parking issues. It's like, but is,
There's no easy answers.
well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't, you know, I'm glad, it's very interesting talking about, because the parking thing is a huge pet peeve of mine, and I just don't know how we'd solve it. I mean, I know you guys deal with this every day, or, you know, every time you're having a meeting, you know more about it than me, because people are coming with ideas and, but it's, I don't know how we're gonna straighten it up, but I think putting up a bunch of, you know, heavily dense buildings with a lot of people and a lot of vehicles is gonna be a big problem.
Councilor Burdick.
I think I've heard everything I need to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if
No,
I'm a talker, so.
It's all right. So am I.
Yeah, but no, it was nice to see everybody again. I'm still, I mean, I don't know if we picked anybody for the zoning board of appeals.
No, we're still going through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, what we're doing now is kind of pushed to the forefront.
Yeah,
So, because we have so many applications, we have to see by,
Okay.
by tomorrow.
So the zoning board stuff, it'll come.
Yeah, it's coming.
well, Cynthia sent me a thing, so I just wanted to come
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
I figured I'd come and
Well, thank you.
bore everybody.
Good seeing you.
It was nice meeting you.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you too. Thank you, take care. Oops. Enjoy, take care, everybody.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you.
You've been waiting long enough.
Well, thank you. I have to say, it was extremely interesting. Got a lot of people with a lot of ideas.
Oh, we do, we do. So I see you're interested in both boards.
Well, I think, I'm more inclined to the zoning regulations. Because of my background experience. And I have to say, I tend to agree with a couple of people who said that housing is virtually as close to an impossible situation as you'll ever encounter. Where I worked before, I started in 1968 in the town of Mountain View in California. And they told me in the interview that housing was one of their big issues they had to address. I left 28 years later. We had doubled the population. And housing was one of the most important things we had to do. Now the state has basically taken over the housing density and development issues with mandates from the top. And I used to do neighborhood plans. And the state came in and said, well, your housing element, which we demand you all have, is late in getting to us. We have a developer who wants to put a very high density development in. I don't know all the background, but I won't try to go into it, but we had a zoning for 12 units an acre. This was about an acre of land. And we had approved the project on it at that. The developer came back and said, I can't make a pencil out. He said, so I went to the state and they now say I can build almost anything I want. So I want to put up a 6-story building. The state has no requirements for the parking and they don't have any setbacks. And it's down, it doesn't feel good.
So did they build it?
I don't know. I'm afraid to look.
Yeah, it's funny, because I just got back from La Mesa. And I have family in Fallbrook. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Fallbrook. It's about an hour north of San Diego. 10 years ago, it was not. Now you should see the traffic housing. I mean, 26,000 square foot house on the foot of lots.
Mhm.
La Mesa, it's just one house built on top of the other. I mean, I've never seen anything like
That's California.
that. It's insane.
It was, when I grew up in New Jersey and, I had this romantic idea about, California. They did a great job of advertising. And when I first went out there, it was idyllic. I fell in love with it. And was fortunate enough to get a job, which I loved in, this town in Silicon Valley. And, when I went back, a couple months ago, took a little vacation. We're not exactly snowbirds, but, we thought it was a good idea to go back and we spent some time there. And I can't believe the town that I worked on is the same town that I worked on. They've, it's just amazing in a short period of time.
Absolutely. Council Clark.
When you said that your that you visited was isn't what it was, are you saying it's better or worse? You're saying it's changed, but
It's not better.
it's not better.
Where we stayed in Healdsburg was quite nice. But they are putting in massive developments up there as well in the middle of the wine country. And, developers are dumb. They're going to the places where they let them do it. And, they're okay. If you want a $2.5 million piece of land to build a house on, that they have developments like that there. I bought a house in Mountain View for $24,000 when I got there initially. I sold it for $500,000 when we moved to Palo Alto. And I stopped by and knocked on the door and said, hey, I want to see who's living in my house. And the gentleman came to the door and anyway, that house is now $2.5 million. So
Thank you.
housing is not something I think I'm going to be able to solve for you or address for you, because I think it's a losing battle. As long as you have people moving in who want to work here, as long as you have people who want to have businesses and industry of any kind, the pressures are there, not going to go away. Opening up one of the things that when I first read about the bridge being widened, I thought it was that's just Katie bar the door. What's now, we got, 4 lanes now on the bridge, they're talking about 8, basically. And not all of them are defined as that they're merging lanes and things like that. But it's just going to open up the floodgates. Instead of it being sort of a funnel, it's now going to become the other end of the funnel.
Well, I'm glad with your experience and talent and schooling that you're paying attention to consequences for changes like that. What made you want to step up at this time for to serve?
Well, I swore that I would never get involved in any of this when I escaped from California. But I did apply for the general plan review because I'd written or helped write several of them over the time, and was not interviewed for that. And but I did see an announcement on this, and I thought, well, we're helping on the zoning. Maybe I could be helpful there.
Yeah, I'm sure you can be. Have you watched the zoning board of appeals meetings or how?
I've been to a couple, but not a lot.
I know some, they're half on Zoom, half on in person,
Yeah, it's
just to see how the regulations are being applied at this time in this place.
yeah. I have a problem in the sense that I don't know how the state law works here as well as I should, or even how the local planning approvals go. Zoning, precise plans or detailed plans or something I'm fairly familiar with, negotiating with people, developers and all. I was also economic development manager in Mountain View.
So,
And those are things that I would be familiar with and might be helpful in that. I worked briefly with the Barnstable Land Trust when they were working on Twin Brooks.
and help them try to come up with a plan that would balance housing and the open space. It's a difficult task.
That sounds like you had a lot to offer. If you were not selected for this committee, would you still be engaged and be able to contribute?
In a limited amount, I have to be honest with you. I turned 83 about a month ago. And
You're a rugged
83 started to catch up with me.
Well, you look very rugged for putting in that mileage, but people who have had that life experience have a lot to contribute. So
Yeah.
thank you for stepping up.
If I could help, I would be glad to.
Thanks.
Councilor Turkelson.
Is there anything in particular about our zoning that you're aware of that you think with your urban planning experience where you say, maybe we've been going north with that concept and we need to head northeast because we're not going to get where we need to go with this path that we're on. Anything in particular?
We did a lot. When I first went to Mountain View, it had a population, almost the same population as Barnstable, about 50,000 people or so. When I left, population had nearly doubled, or it is now nearly double that. We did a lot of advanced planning, we call it. We had two divisions in the planning department. One was advanced planning, where we said, okay, well, here's an area that's got some issues. It's got some potential for doing some redevelopment and for expansion perhaps. And we would take a fairly large neighborhood and we would do the planning for that. And lots of neighborhood meetings and lots of involvement of staff involved in it, police department, fire department, public works particularly, because a lot of the things, when I first got to Mountain View, El Camino Real was this main road that was going, the state highway. And we were hoping they improved all the way up to the edge of Mountain View. And then we had a governor named Brown who came in and he stopped all highway construction. And so we sat there for quite a few years with, the roughest road in the whole area. We ended up coming up with a plan where we got the property owners, we set up an assessment district and we had them come up with most of the money to do the improvements. And that was sort of a solution to some degree. A lot of the property owners were not pleased with that. I think there's lots of ways to look at things, but a town is the size of even 50,000 is too big in order to really get a good idea of what needs to be done, in my view. It should really be thought of as sort of segments, neighborhoods. In Hyannis, there are neighborhoods in Hyannis that are sort of individual unto themselves. And how do you deal with that neighborhood in order to sort of professionally and sensitively make changes in that neighborhood? I heard a question there. What would you think about putting high density in Katuitt, which happens to be where I live? I'm looking around in Katuitt, and how would I do that? I don't see many options. One, because it has a pretty strong identity unto itself. I think that we have to look at the whole town and say, okay, where are real assets in terms of the neighborhoods, what they provide. This last gentleman who spoke, he was phenomenal, I thought. I mean, he was absolutely right. Mountain View used to be part of, in Silicon Valley, the Valley of the Heart's Delight, is what they call it. Come down from San Francisco, they actually had little villages built in town for people to take the train down, and that was a recreation area for a long time. Anyway, the Valley of the Heart's Delight is not delightful anymore. It's, this isn't, there are neighborhoods there that we did manage to preserve and enhance, and those are pretty well isolated and protected, and I think the residents there are very defensive about anything that might interrupt that. We have, I keep saying we, because I was there for 28 years. It became, to me, a very important place. But there are mobile home parks that are thoroughly protected under the zoning, so that they are not going to go away. They are there, and neighborhoods were built around them and incorporated them into the neighborhood. I don't know if that's would be helpful here or not, but the whole idea of sort of stepping ahead of the developers and saying, what are we going to do in this neighborhood? If there's going to be an assignment, and believe me, either through the state or through the town itself, there's going to be assignments of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think, but, and so what could you do? I mean, but it takes intensive local planning to do that. And I don't know if anybody's really got the patience to do that sort of thing. I'm talking a lot, I'll shut up.
No, Council Bloom.
Yeah, well, you're uniquely situated here because you're an urban planner and you're also involved in the economic development. I imagine you could look at Hyannis, downtown Hyannis, and have a few ideas about what needs to be done.
Well, I did do a little bit of reading about the plans for downtown, and we did something very similar to that 20 years ago in downtown Mountain View. I was back there recently. They've now eliminated all cars on Castro Street in Mountain View in downtown. And I wouldn't agree with that either, but it shows the level of change that took place. So I think that the plans that I saw, or the information I saw, seemed pretty darn good in terms of how to handle traffic, how to set up things so people could be outside comfortably, make it in more of a really phenomenal recreation area. Things, I see people having concerns about traffic. Oh, we need traffic lights, so we need, what do we need here for the traffic to accommodate? I don't, and I just don't know where that project is now. I haven't heard a thing about it for quite a while.
Are you talking about the two-way Main Street?
Yeah, I've always worked I worked with an extremely good urban designer, Michael Friedman, who helped us redo downtown Mountain View, Castro Street. And his feeling was always, and I tend to agree with it, that you needed the traffic on a commercial street and two-way traffic rather than like a thoroughfare. It is really, people are willing to accept that as an environment for a comfortable place to be if you provide enough protection and you're careful about that space between the building and where the cars are. And that seemed to be the plan that the gentleman who was hired as a consultant to work on, it seemed to me the plan that he had, and it seemed to make a great deal of sense. Now, in terms of then when I was economic development manager, we went through the changes that were made there in Mountain View. And, we worked extensively with the property owners and the business people in order to come up with making those changes. And, so, it's, so I think it could be phenomenal. We do not, I can tell you, my wife and I do not like the downtown Hyannis now in terms of the way it feels to us. I think it could be substantially more attractive and comfortable for people to be in. Right now, it's kind of chaotic in my view. So And there was a lot of discussion earlier about parking. And the gentleman who was talking about parking was absolutely all right in many respects. But if you're gonna have it downtown, you may have to do some other things. You have to build some structures for parking. And get the property owners to support that. I know there's a fear about how high buildings are, but Hyannis may be the place in downtown where some taller buildings are very appropriate and can provide housing, mixed use development, such as that. I sound like I'm lecturing, I don't want to do that, I want to answer a question.
No, I, to be honest with you, you have the knowledge, I don't, to be quite honest with you. You know what I mean? Like I tell people, you want to know anything about glass, I can tell you anything you want to know.
That's great. You have somebody to clean it?
I have experience in one
Expunge?
town in California. I was there for 28 years, which is unheard of.
I'm gonna Google it later.
Oh, do well. Oh, yes.
I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna look at some YouTube videos.
It's the home of Google. If you know what Google is. Our headquarters is located here.
I just started with that.
I was an important part of putting together the whole plan for that part of town, adjacent to the bay. And, my kids enjoy the story. We used to have a program in economic development where we go out to businesses and with the mayor and the city manager and myself, and we would set up an appointment with the CEO of new businesses opening in Silicon Valley. And we sit down around the table and have some coffee and how's it going? Are you enjoying Mountain View? What's wrong? What can we do better? How can we help you? And that was our, business visitor program that we set up. And one of the first groups that we went to see was this little startup in town. It had, maybe 25,000 square foot part of the building. And they called themselves Google. I said, I gotta find out what a Google does. And two people who started the firm were there. We interviewed them. They talked so far over my head in terms of what they were doing. I had no idea. But my kids, who are now heavily into computers and that sort of thing, you mean you met him? Yeah.
Yeah, you should have taken the stock option when after that too.
So, anyway.
Councilor Burdick?
Well, at the end again, here we are. I'm glad. No, thanks, Ken. I appreciate it. I know you as Ken. Your name, isn't that your name?
Yeah, it's Harold Kenneth.
That's what I thought.
And I've never used Harold.
I was confused. But, yeah, I think I've heard what I'd like to hear. I think very good, very informative. I appreciate you coming out and participating for sure. Thank you.
Well, you do a real job in town.
We'll try. Do my best.
All right.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you so much. You haven't asked me about
Compromise?
compromise.
Oh, he doesn't.
You have a whirlwind of experience, so I already know,
I was just gonna say, I've been married for 40 years.
That's personal.
Nice to see you.
Take care.
I'll see you around, I'm sure.
Alana?
Hi.
Hi, come on up.
Good afternoon.
How are you? Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Ciao.
Hi.
Hello. Yeah, that's me.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good, thank you for coming in.
Sure.
Now, as you know, we have a lot of, you weren't here, so you didn't hear my little spiel. We have a lot of controversy with this issue going on in town.
Yeah.
So in your professional life, can you tell me a time when you've had to compromise to come to a decision for the betterment of the company or whatever?
Well, I'm the owner of the Caribbean Lounge, and of course, I've worked in hospitality for the past 14 years here on Cape Cod and retail. So there has been a lot of compromising, of course, especially to meet the needs of the guests or meet the needs of customers. So in the restaurant industry, of course, we might not meet everybody's needs, but at the same time, we want everybody to be happy. So I've had to compromise. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So what made you, motivated you to apply for this job, or for this, assignment?
So what motivated me is the fact that I am the future, my children are the future. And I've been living here on Cape Cod ever since I left Jamaica 14 years ago. And this is home away from home. And I want my voice to be heard. I want to learn what's going on here because I've had a lot of people coming to me asking me about housing and I don't know how to help. I don't know what to do. And I think it's time for me to take a seat at the table.
Nice. Have you watched, any of the housing or read up on any of the, housing committee minutes or seen what they've been up to?
I haven't had a lot of details about it, but I've heard that there's one on Thursday. And I'd love to be a part of it. I'm new to all this and I'm here to learn and to give my input where it's needed.
Nice. Thank you for stepping up. If you were not chosen for this committee, would you still stay engaged or participate to help address some of the concerns?
Of course, I've been a part of a lot of nonprofit organizations and I'm here to stay. So of course, housing has been one of my passion, knowing what's going on and where I stand, where my children stand for the future. So yes, I'd love to be a part, even if I'm not chosen. Yes, thank you.
Council Verdict.
Man.
Curveball.
Back to number 2. All right, good. So, I'm just curious about the Caribbean Lounge. I know it's on Main Street, right past where the Brazilian Grill. What's that? Or,
It's before the rest.
yeah. And how long have you been there?
We've been there for 4 years. August will be 4 years since we've been in business.
How's it been?
It's been good, knowing that I try my best every day to execute all positions of the business because it's so hard to get staff
Right.
or good staff or dependent staff. So because there's no housing on Cape Cod, and even when I can get someone, say from New York or Pennsylvania, that's a really good bartender or a really good chef, there's nowhere to put them to live because me myself as a first-hand, I'm a mother of 2 children going to Barnstable school children that I've been living with extended family for the past few years because there's no housing. So
Yeah, and
it's
so,
been crazy
yeah,
getting
it's rough.
staff. So I have to be doing here, there, and everywhere just to keep the doors open. And I try to keep the doors open year round.
yeah.
Yes.
And now that's attached to what used to be a hotel in the
Yes.
back. That's not part of it though. That's a whole separate thing.
It's
What is
separate
that for?
business. I lease the space from the owner.
Right, and that's still a hotel
It's
back
a
there?
hotel, yes.
And, how old are your kids?
My children, my oldest, she is 20, she'll be 21 this year. And my daughter my baby, she turns 9 on Thursday.
And how do you find, doing business on Main Street? Just generally, with the kind of the traffic, the clientele, the whole thing, how do you find it?
Personally, for me, most people go up in that busy area right between the top
Yeah,
and C Street. Most people don't really come down the end. There's not a lot of foot traffic unless they're actually coming to the the location. So it's been hard, but I have a lot of local loyal customers, I must say, and that supports us and keep our doors open. A lot of people, when I see them and I haven't seen them in a long time, and I'd ask, how's everything? I haven't seen you in a while, or they said, oh, I now live in Fall River, I live in New Bedford, but they do work on the Cape because there's no housing for them. So that's taken away from my business as well, because a lot of my local customers, loyal customers, they've been moving off the Cape. So I wanna let my voice be heard here in whatever way I can. And I'm willing to learn and understand how it works and what we can do to make a difference, not just for today, but for tomorrow and future years.
absolutely. And do you network a lot with like the BID and other small business owners and
I
stuff?
do. I'm so happy you asked that question. So the Caribbean Lounge was awarded last year, by BID and the Greater Chamber, Small Business of the Year for 2023. And also I am a member of CCYP. I'm also a member of Amplify POC. We're also a member of Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. And I've done a lot of vending events and I've done a lot of sponsorship and local events.
So you're very involved.
I am involved and I'm also an advocate for Independence House, against domestic violence. I sit on the, advisory committee for Amplify POC CEO Tara Vargas.
Right.
Wallace.
And then this will be my final question. This is the most continuous line of questions that I've had yet today. It wasn't completely off topic, but, and how do you, I know that sometimes, for instance, the BID gets a bad rap and that there's an impression that somehow their influence or their representation is outsized on Main Street in comparison to other people's interests who may be from, other villages, wherever. How do you, as a small business owner on Main Street, how do you feel or and if you have any feeling of the pulse of the other small business owners that you deal with on a regular basis, how do you feel about your representation as a small business owner in the larger picture of the town and how these decisions are made as it pertains to Main Street?
I must say, for the past 2 years, I've gotten to know a lot of people over the past 2 years. And I think they're trying. What they're trying to do, though, is the beautification of downtown Cape Cod to make it look beautiful. At the same time, the people who are working tirelessly, especially in hospitality, those restaurants, those stores, they are unhappy going to work. Because guess what? At the end of the day, they're putting out their best to make it what we all want to see, the beautiful downtown. But at the same time, they live nowhere. There's a lot of people who have been going from friend's house or family's house, going by couches or whatever. And I think there's something we can do for a better life for those who are putting their hardest out in the industry of hospitality or even retail. There's not much on Main Street, but there is a lot of stores or convenience stores or so forth. I think there's more can be done with housing compared to the beautification. They've been doing a lot. And I give thanks to that because it's beautiful. A lot of people might not see the beautification of it. Maybe they're there in the daytime when it's just like crowded, especially in the busy time. But like at night when I'm going home, it's beautiful.
It is. I see it.
It
I'm
is
leaving here.
beautiful. They do a
11
good
o'clock at
job.
night. It looks very pretty.
I've seen compared to the graffitis as well, where they do a lot of, and they change that, paint that over, the planters. They're trying their best, but at the same time, the people that are working behind the scenes, they need to be comfortable and living happy just the same. And cost of living alone is ridiculous on Cape Cod. So housing, of course, shelter is a need, and it's not just a want, it's a need. So I think that should be a forefront as well.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Some of those I realized were kind of off topic and I was getting on everybody's case about not dragging it out, but I have one more and I won't drag it out any further. One small question that just as a contextual issue or clarification. So as a business owner on Main Street and hearing so much about how in people's minds what a huge issue parking is on Main Street, I'm just curious about what your experience is with and how much you feel that parking affects your business. I mean, do you even feel it? Do you notice it? Do you say, well, I bet no one could park today because it was slow? Do you know what I mean?
Listen, I hate parallel park. I hate having to go up on Main Street to do anything, and having to park. I must say, for my business, we have 135 parking lots, that we share with the hotel. But during peak season, sometimes it's hard for customers, then we'll be like, okay, we'll do curbside, assistance today. When it's convenient for the staff as well, and when we have enough staff to do so. But it's hard, because I've seen where other businesses are parking in or a parking spot. Of course, I'm not gonna make a problem, because I'm not that busy where I'm taking all that parking space. But a lot of workers and customers, sometimes my parking lot is full and there's nobody there, and I wonder what's going on. But of course, it affects, because we have one of the best parking spots. So I can't complain as much as other people do, because of course I'm grateful, but at the same time, I still have to take in consideration, how are these people managing? And I think it doesn't do well for business because people have nowhere to park. So when people want to go and support a restaurant up the street or wherever, the parking is so bad that they don't even want to stop.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I won't drag it out any further. Thank you.
I like the questions you would have, sir. Help me to know you a little bit better, Alana. I gotta hand it to you for keeping your business going,
I try.
you know? It must be very difficult. And, I know that, whenever, we have friends come down in the summertime, sometimes we call for home delivery from the Caribbean Lounge and, enjoy it. Is home delivery, that kind of thing, is that a good portion? Are you getting enough?
It's never enough.
It's
So it's never enough because guess what? So we do online ordering, you can pick up in store, but we also do Uber Eats, DoorDash. That's one of our biggest killers in the hospitality industry. But what can we do? We gotta do what we gotta do. It helps, but the DoorDash, Uber Eats, they take 30% from the sales, different from marketing, 30%. So if someone is spending $100 worth of food, the restaurant is basically getting $70. Worse if it's a promotion, buy one, get one or something.
I'm
It's
coming to
even
pick up
worse.
from now on.
Please, we appreciate it,
No
but
more.
on top of that, I saw the problem and I tried to fix it. So last year, March, I bought a van for delivery services. So I bought the van, Toyota in Hyannis was very good to me. And now we're able to do delivery. We've been doing that over a year, but I think maybe I need to do more marketing in regards to the delivery because a lot of people are not using that platform. It's like $5 fee within Hyannis to deliver, but we're not getting enough delivery. But then DoorDash and Uber Eats, they do so many promotions where sometimes people get 50% off today and it's a cost to Uber Eats or DoorDash, whatever promotion. I can't afford to do that. So it's a situation where I'm seeing problems and I'm trying to fix it, but we need the people, the locals or the visitors to come on and call and we'll deliver. Yeah.
Can I say something positive about her?
Just a second, we gotta,
Oh, about
yeah.
her.
Counselor Torkelson.
I'm gonna go off topic, I'm gonna pull this up. So I have never been to your place of business, but now I'm going. Only because I somehow thought I had to like be hanging out at the hotel to go, I guess. I was like, that's not really my.
I've
I
been
know
had
it's
that
not really
question
my
a lot
vibe, but,
lately.
you know, it's not my
I need to put
vibe.
a sign that open to public.
Yeah.
I will.
So what's the best thing on your menu that you recommend I order?
What do you like?
I like
You like seafood, you like chicken, pork? Have you had an oxtail?
I have.
All right, so let me tell you a secret. It's a secret. Tomorrow is no longer. a secret.
It's more
Come on, lad.
No, the whole town is now gonna know.
All right, we're gonna say it. It's good. All right, so the Caribbean Lounge will be on the long table this year. So I look forward to see some faces. We'll be having a 4-course meal with wine. And we have a lot of Caribbean flavors, different flavors, but we support our local businesses for the products that we use. So we have like beef patties, that's not like the regular beef patty here. It's like in a pastry, flaky pastry. We also have soup that's coming for the appetizer. We have oxtail with rice and beans and vegetables. And we have a trio dessert with sweet potato pudding, bread pudding, and the Jamaican Christmas fruit cake. On our menu, we have it as yard fruit cake. Okay, so look forward to us on the long table. I'm looking forward to some support from the town. All right, and our tickets are not that expensive and it includes passenger activities. Is that a good idea? Okay, so tomorrow we'll be publishing.
Bubbles, you want to say something?
She knows, we know, I love her. You have no idea how she handles things either. One night we were in the club and my brother was DJing. She's perfect. Then we had one, I won't call him a gentleman, but he was one jerk. It was beautiful atmosphere. It was nice. One gentleman person came in, remember the night brought in all the women? And different women were coming to me, Marianne, who's a guy, and you all know me. I'm gonna say what I gotta say. I happened to be standing where she was sitting by the bar. She heard it. She wasn't even having it. I felt like we were a bunch of shivas. There was 4 women. She, of course, being the owner, was like, oh no, we ain't having this.
Oh.
We walked around to, remember? And no police was needed. It was very nice, no rough talking. We handled it like women.
But we walked in, he had to back up, he was like this. We weren't, am I telling the
Wait,
truth?
so what happened was, so, this is something for us to all know about the Caribbean Lounge. It's a safe space for everyone.
There is-
And as soon as, even if you're gonna start talking loud to someone, that might just turn out into something else. You can take that outside, but not inside the Caribbean Lounge. Unfortunately, it might be something else to somebody, or it might be affecting another guest down there. We don't need that kind of vibe. It's a good vibe for everyone. It's a safe space for everyone. And I want everybody to feel welcome coming to the Caribbean Lounge. So we do dining, we do takeout, we have a beautiful outdoor patio that we're trying to improve on for this season coming up. So it's definitely a safe space, and I want everybody to feel comfortable coming there. Okay?
Thank you so much.
We
Of
handled it
course,
so
thank you.
professionally and just, it was like, we felt like a
you.
bunch of shivas.
Thank you.
Brought that up.
Of course, it's a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you at Long Table.
All right, last but not least,
That's it.
Oh, what you trying to say?
Renee, was here. She was the woman
Oh,
sitting
okay.
there, and she left and withdrew her application.
Okay. Thank you.
wow.
Okay, first I have to say, here's what it looked like. I had my 2-year-old grandbaby with me all day. I had a ball, so I'm going to. I did, I had a
Good, that's good.
ball. But they just got him before I got here, and I mean, they were killing ants.
I didn't give her time because she,
Well, but it was okay. I was always- And I'm trying to get him not to catch ants. It's like we can catch him. And I try to say, go on, go on. But his dad was afraid of spiders, so he is too.
And a fire.
That's right, that's the baby.
All right.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Kristen.
Mary Ann, how are you? Hi, Mary, nice seeing you.
I'm Jeff. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And, let's pretend.
Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you. Okay, well, now, let's go.
All right.
I'm gonna play shy and I don't know how to do this. Let's go.
Okay, as you know, we have a lot of divisive issues going on in town.
Yes.
Can you please give me an example where you had to compromise in your professional? I know you had kids and all that, so, but I'm talking about that. Just.
Well, okay, professionally, I worked at the hospital for 100,000 years before I, actually worked with children. So there was a whole lot of compromise. You know, you had to, being a union rep, trustee, and with all those things for the whole years I was there, voted in. So you had to compromise, you know, and then as once I got out, of course, you know, the police department, that's something that we had to compromise, the chiefs and I, to work on different issues in the community, and I think that's all going well. If I feel that it's wrong, I'm gonna speak my piece, and I'm gonna stand strong to it. But I will, if your heart is right, if what you are doing is not out to hurt the people, I'll work with you. But if you're out to hurt the people, I'm gonna stand until someone says, please move her. You know, I mean, that's just the truth. I'll tell the world that. But there are a lot of people, I myself, we make our mistakes. But if our mistakes aren't from a negative place, from malice, from prejudice, from whatever, we can work together. You know, we all may want to get to that same place and see a different way to get there. Maybe you can go down the middle. But there are some people that just don't want to go down that road at all. We got a problem. I thought I turned it down more than I'm sorry.
I'm so far.
Thank you very much. You want to take care of it?
No, I thought I had it down. Is it bothering you? I'll turn it down.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's more, you know what it is? Someone told me this is gonna happen. They said when you hit a certain age, you get all the spam calls. I get so many spam, I get 65, and all I get is spam. Oh, man. I'm
So Mary Ann, what
Yes.
motivated you to sign up for this committee at this time?
I've been involved in this kind of stuff. I have pictures of my 44-year-old sitting on my lap, being involved with housing issues and housing and the community issues. When I heard that they were starting this, I needed to be a part of this committee. I've been involved in housing issues and issues of the people on the Cape forever. This is just because you all started this committee. So here I am.
Well, I'm glad that the committee has been launched, and I've seen you at the council meetings. Have you been invested in checking out what the housing committee had been doing?
Well, a lot of things that I had to do, I've had to do around, you know, helping with my grandchildren, helping with my medical. There's a lot of issues that have gone on, so I don't venture out too much. I kind of pulled myself in. Now I pick the different things, and housing is a top notch. Housing is top notch for me, and the police issues when they become negative. So I have a good rapport with the police now and the chiefs. We work very close. And housing is right up there. Those are the two things that in a community affect people the most. Now, of course, someone could come to me because people still call me for help. Someone could call me tomorrow and say they go to Cape Cod Hospital and don't get waited on. And that becomes, that'll be the third one, you know. The other things I try to put on the side burner, but this is not new, getting into it. I've been doing this forever.
Yep, I understand. If you were not selected for this committee, would you still be engaged and participate or contribute?
I don't know how not to be. If I'm the type that cannot listen to talk radio. Seriously, because I can't get in, my stomach hurts, so I don't bother. You know, why lie about it? I am involved. That's just who I am. You know, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but that's
The
me.
way you're brought up, Tasha.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilor Turkelson?
I'm not familiar with your work history. So you're at Cape Cod Hospital, and what was your role at Cape Cod Hospital?
Well, I started in the kitchen, ended up in Central, and did a little bit of X-ray. I worked there for how many years? Oh, my God.
Well, I was there for 30, so you must have been there longer than me.
Well, we were there for a little long, many years.
30
And, the other things I was talking about, I was also voted in as a union steward and a trustee. And so the whole time I was there, those are also department members.
And when people call you and they want you to advocate for them, I'm curious, I mean, obviously you have a command of presence, so I could see why they will call you. That's a beautiful thing. I mean that as a compliment, honestly. Do you feel your role is also in, besides modeling through your own actions? Are you a person who looks to teach others so that they can be advocating for themselves? Or are you just such a fix-it kind of person? You just go straight to it and fix it?
I will help any human being, but I expect you to do it with me to learn.
Okay,
Now,
great.
if you're shy, you're scared, and you're afraid, and someone's bullying you, then I'll take on that role. But yeah, that's very important to me. I mean, some of these kids, this is why some of these kids in this community, I'm either ma or auntie, because I will go up to a group of kids that I do not know. And let me hear one word that shouldn't be heard, and before I'm done, we're hugging. But I need to tell whether it's the young men, the young ladies. That's who I believe. I really truly believe it takes a village. And it does, you know, so, and I don't care what the child looks like. You know, there was a time on Main Street, and we all knew it, that years ago, if there were 3 or 4 Black children on Main Street, half the Black men in this town, younger ones, had a police record of disorderly or trespass. That's just from being on Main Street, walking like everyone else. Of course, I was going to take that on, because they knew the parents couldn't afford an attorney to keep them in court to get rid of the charge, so they dragged it out. Next thing you know, everyone accepted, okay, probation. No, we had to deal with that. When they weren't going after the Black kids, they were going after the white kids with purple hair and skateboards. I wasn't going to have that either. You can't treat people a certain way because that was part of my problem with the new Barnstable. We don't want young people. We want, this is a rich retirement place. No, it's not. No, it's not. So I think I get involved where I find there's a need. And I never found myself too involved in schools until parents will call me if they're having a problem. And people know I'm a very straightforward person, but I'm an honest person, I'm a fair person. I mean, there are people that I've helped that I went to one apartment building. When I learned that the apartment building, although they needed a new septic, well, you can't fight them if they are literally making sure they clean out that septic every 2 days. They're bringing in a company. Well, wait a minute, now you're just being picky. Now you're just trying to fight that apartment. I don't go for that. You know, we gotta be fair here. So if you're trying to do your thing and you're trying to do it right, we don't get no problem. But if you're leaving that septic, you know it's broken, you're forcing people to live like that and you don't care, we have an issue. That's just who I am. I don't know how else to tell you.
No, I appreciate that. I just am curious because I don't know you, so I'm just, you know, getting to know.
Well,
I got the sense and I just was
Yeah,
trying, because I don't have any direct experience, so I was like, I just want, you know.
I get, and you know, I'm gonna tell you honestly, and I don't say this as a to be conceited, because it could be a bad thing. I know who I am. 50 of the town, I've learned how to duck, because they throw tomato or want to throw tomatoes. The other 50% love me to death, because either you're fighting or you're against. Now, if you ever want to know how I am, look online. Google Mary Ann Barbaros or Town of Barnstable, you see how far I go back. Like I said, my one son is 44, 45. How old is Bruce? I don't know. But, you know, you're telling me Bruce's age. But my son Bruce, not different. And
Bruce is older than me.
yeah, 44. I'm at meetings with him on my lap. That's how far back. And it's not. And then my father, I don't know if you know my father, he just passed away in January, 97. Type in Walter Barbosa. He has the King Center. He started the King Center down here. And it's what you believe. You know, I come from a family of, and of course the men in my family want to kill me because I come from a very large family of women. That's important for me to say, because my mother's family, there were 13 girls and 2 boys. So when you went home to get someone, because someone was picking on you, you went home and got your sister, you didn't get your brother. So we were strong. And I think, I don't know, I just believe in, you gotta do the right thing, period. And if, like I have always taught my kids, and I love that about my sons, if you have to step over someone, you know better. And if you have a sandwich and that's all you have, and someone in front of you is hungry, here, we can share it. We just cut it up in 4s. You know, I mean, my role isn't to knock anybody. I don't knock anybody because they're rich. I really don't. But I do knock you if you walk by someone, a child that you say, we gotta save the children. And you see a kid eating out the garbage can, you can't offer them some food because you live on Cape Cod. Bye. You know, this place is not a resort. They want it to be. It is not. It's our homes. Been here forever. So, you know, I'm sorry. How I answered your
No, you
question.
did. No,
I
appreciate
talk
that.
a lot.
That's
You
okay.
really, he'll tell you to stop me. Cut me off.
I'm not saying anything.
All right. Well, I'm gonna tell you, my doctor, I love her. That's why she's the best doctor in the world. Since a man stopped talking. She does. What doctor says that? But she does. John Clem.
Okay.
John Clem used to tell me, we used to go into meetings, Marion is only a half-hour meeting. Like that, ain't right? I'm sorry.
Well, you know, you're definitely a straightforward person, which I really like. I've seen you, you know, in action and it's great. And I see here, you know, you just started to touch on this, but you wrote something here that I have experienced the beauty and the demise of the Cape by those who are trying to make our home their permanent vacation spot. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The very thing that the people came to the Cape for, they've taken away. You know, the beauty of the Cape, I mean, there was a friendliness, a kindness, a peacefulness, not peaceful, because it's every city, I don't care where you live, it's crazy, but it's turned into a city by big builders, not homes, but stores, the boutiques. Half of the people that live here don't shop in boutiques. You have to drive down the find a store so you can shop for your 7 kids. You can't go into a boutique and buy school clothes, but they don't want those stores on the Cape anymore. They load it up with boutiques. So the demise, it's falling apart. I mean, in that sense, but to the people who want to make it a resort, they absolutely love it. That's not what the Cape is. You know, I remember as a little girl, my first indication of what everyone has a time when they realize what a president was and who a president was. Mine was President Kennedy. But as a little girl, remember my mother and them taking us to see him, walking out to church in Barnstable, not St. Francis. But I'm young, I didn't know he was a president. They didn't have all what they have now, you know, and then when he was assassinated, we had to sit and watch. My mother made us watch it, and that was my first, that was the man I saw, you know, first indication, but even then, I know people that come into the Cape, oh, the Kennedys, oh, the Kennedys. The Kennedys don't act like, oh, the Kennedys, you know what I mean? They don't do that, you know, they. Oh, I'm just kidding every time, don't. Thank you. But the Kennedys didn't even act like, we used to have house parties. They go to the house parties. Joe's twin villa was my uncle's.
Was that your uncle's?
Yeah. Uncle
Oh,
Bill.
wow.
Yeah,
I missed
yeah.
that place.
Yes, that was my uncle. That was my father's mother's, my grandmother's brother, my father's mother's brother.
Wow.
Kennedys were in the villa. So they were people, everyday people. So the people that come into the Cape trying to be fancy dancy are bringing this air with them. It's like, knock it off. And when they get here, they're trying to eliminate the people who have been here forever. Oh, they don't make the Cape look good. The Cape's not looking good. We were here long before you. So all of that trying to push people away needs to stop. And the making the rents so high that people are forced off, it's in the long run going to hurt everybody. I know we heard a comment where somebody said, oh, we're tired of hearing people talk about there's going to be no one here to work. Well, it's not just that. It's not even just the people working. It's going to get to a point where there's nothing but old people on the Cape. I mean, old. And where's the beauty in that? I'm serious. You know, I refuse. And I am the type. I'll go to jail 100 days a day, every day if I have to. I'll pitch a tent right on that green. And that's where I live, if I have to. And I know that sounds very, I don't know what it sounds like, but I would do it. I would do it before, because there are people assume that everyone that is homeless out here is homeless because of something they did. That is not true. Everybody is a paycheck away. They're a paycheck away from being homeless. And no matter what you're making, if everything else around you was going up, how far are you going to stretch your paycheck? And then if both parents go to work, then the school is saying, oh, a bunch of parents like your kids, why aren't you there doing the homework with your kids? Parent, wait a minute, I couldn't be home to do homework with my kids. We both had to work. It's a catch-22.
Yeah.
There has to really be some human interests coming back into play. You know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not, because there's too many rich people I know who fought big time to make the change. I don't know if y'all know the Lillienthal's, but I love them. They passed away just recently, but they were active, stayed in March with Dr. King, Peggy and David Lillienthal. You know them? Anyone you remember? Oh, I love them. Me and Peggy and Mother Bear, me little, we were like, only thing our husbands at the time didn't like is like if we decided to jump in front of a train, they would be like, don't do that. And we would. I mean, we'd stop it. We wouldn't jump in front of it for suicide. But I mean, and my little Peggy, oh my God, she marched with Dr. King, Peggy. Now they were rich. David is an author. Doris is soul. You know, his books are made out of movies. And he used to laugh. He's like, man, you and Peggy, you all got stuff. No. And Peggy be like, oh man. So I mean, there are plenty of people, many people that I just totally respect and love. You know, and my family, don't get me wrong. On my mother's side, my uncle was district attorney of Cleveland. So it's not as if we are opposed to money. I have doctors, judges on my mother's side. Okay. Of course, he used to get mad because I didn't go into law, but I'd probably be protesting some of them. I know I would, because there are some that have a very different view than me. I just really need people to understand that everybody that's homeless is not there because they're lazy. And don't be so quick to judge in the wintertime when you see someone give someone $1 and they go in and buy a bottle. That bottle's keeping them warm. You know, there are plenty of times they drink that and they're warm. They're no longer cold. And that dollar was not going to get a roof over their head. So I just want, I want everyone to understand I'm willing to learn and work with, actually, I don't know who I don't work with on it. I mean, I can sit and dine with the Queen and sit outside on the stoop just as evenly. You know, probably the only person that can hug a police officer over here and turn around and hug a drug dealer, because both of them know my role. I'll tell a drug dealer on heartbeat, what you do is your business, but if I see you selling to a kid, I see you getting a kid involved, I'm getting a bullhorn, I'm going on the roof. I tell the police, don't ask me no questions, that's your job. You know what I mean? As long as you respect the people, if you arrest them, let them get to jail freely. I don't have a problem with anyone being arrested for a crime. But don't you arrest them and pick a certain group to arrest. And then all of a sudden, this one, because his uncle's a judge, he's out in 2 days for the exact same crime, exact same records, and this one over here is under the jail. No. And make sure both of them get to jail without any marks, without any issues, then we have no issue. Yeah, I ain't got no problem with, I don't know, I talk a lot, I'm sorry. Y'all go ahead.
Before we go to Seth, I just wanted to say one thing. Joe's Twin Villa was a totally unique place. Probably in Massachusetts.
Yes. Do you remember Uncle Pete's in Mashpee?
Yes.
That was my house too. That was his brother. Uncle Joe and Uncle Pete were brothers.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
they were brothers. And the funny part, me and Mary and Joseph, we used to play under the pool table and Uncle Joe's.
Yeah.
And they would get mad because they go and all.
Great music.
Yes.
It was a dose of reality for Fosterville.
Mhm. And even that, matter of fact, when this is how arrogant some of the people moving into Massachusetts were. When they bought their homes in Osterville and they built them right across from the villa. And then try to get rid of the villa. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And that's when Ted Kennedy, Norris his soul, he was like, no, it was there when you built your homes. How dare you? But that
Yeah.
is some of the stuff we're talking about. Our community, we get enough people in, but they don't realize there's some hardcore Cape Codders here, and I'm one of them. And believe it or not, there's a lot like me. I'm just mouthy. I just, I mean, you know, and I'm not afraid to be mouthy in public.
I don't think Seth's gonna have any. That's we don't have any.
I appreciate
I
it.
am so sorry.
You
And-
take your time. I have, well, other than we've been here for 3.5 hours.
But Cindy will tell you, and this baby here will tell you, I talk a lot. They both know, they try to say, oh, Lord. You know, our,
Question, Marianne, is if you're in a committee, will you be able to
Oh.
let others?
don't even go there, don't. No, but that's the good thing. I've worked and done this enough that I know my role. And I also know my role tonight is for me to speak, so I'm okay and comfortable. But I've worked enough in different places, and had I not known the difference, I don't think I would have been asked over the years to join different committees. I've been on the board of directors at the legal services. There's so many different things, and I don't even write all the things down that I do. Some people say you're crazy. You've got a pretty good little, but I don't, because to me, it's just what I do. And I didn't remember that until I'm just sitting here talking, but being on the board of directors at legal services years ago, it's a big deal, you know,
Well, I think it might be a good use of your time to write all that stuff down.
it's somewhere in my
Yeah.
house, but I can't, you know, I figure if I'm going to work on the Cape, maybe if I were off Cape and was doing something else, I would gather it all up. But I figure people don't know me by now on the Cape, you'll learn.
Oh, no, you all do.
She was also part of the bomb squad at the Cape Cod
Oh,
Hospital.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Cindy. See, this is why I love her.
Myself, I was 9 months pregnant. And we were told to go in the lab and look for a bomb,
Yes, well, yeah, we were part of a bomb.
because we were cheap labor.
And they didn't care if we blew up. They knew it. As long as if I blew up, you took care of my kids. That's all I needed. But, yeah, we did a lot of things different, but listen, guys, you're a tough cookie. I thank you. You know what, I'm just me. I'm sorry. I don't know how else
Thank you, Mary.
to say it. I really don't.
You're your father's daughter, that's for sure.
Oh, you know what, everyone says that.
Because it's true. He wouldn't be quiet either.
Hey, but it's the truth.
It's the truth.
And Jim Little laughs all the time. He said, oh my Lord. Because then he'll say, he actually will still call me my father sometimes.
Before you guys leave, I need a motion to.
Yeah.
I'll seeing you again, darling. All right. Good luck there, and that's for that. And good luck.
Thank you all.
Thank you for everybody wants to talk to you, right? Oh, they business.
Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
And you know, Cindy, you know I could get my hug.
All right.
Bye, baby girl.
Bye.
Love you.
I forgot about that bomb squad.
Yeah.
I really did.
That's it better than my head.
See, that's
Thank
where
you.
it is. Thank you, guys.
All
Now,
right.
really,
You
seriously,
want to do roll call?
A motion, you get
Yeah.
a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
can I say something before they second?
All those in favor?
Oh.
Aye.
You're adjourned.